Hello everyone. Today, a very interesting story awaits you. And before it starts, I would like to ask you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. There was a sudden car accident. An ordinary office worker never thought that he would be involved in a traffic accident. The man was very surprised. This event quickly moved him to a completely different world. A white-haired young man sits with his eyes closed. A strange creature is crawling on it. The hero wondered what happened to the one who stood before him. The boy was unhappy. It was hell. He couldn't just watch and wait for death. The new moon pulled the heathen away from him. The mystical creature screeched. He asked if the monster wanted to eat him. Without thinking long, the young man decided to do the same with him. He put the devil's head in his mouth and bit it. The demon's blood flowed down the young man's body and dripped onto the jade pendant, and everything changed quickly. The ornament began to glow magically. The hero was lying on the floor. His face expressed complete surprise and incomprehension of what was happening. While the white-haired boy was confused, a mysterious man appeared in front of him. The stranger came to send the young man to the Jingnite division. Because of this, the hero became a guard in dark clothes who specializes in working with strange creatures. A large number of mutilated bodies lay on the floor. It seemed as if these men had been brutally bitten. The truth was that these people died of overeating. It was better not to know what exactly they ate. The boy turned his attention to the poor man who was sitting on a blanket and holding a large pot in his hands. The stranger looked at the young man and smiled. There was clearly something wrong with the man. Unexpectedly, a monster appeared in front of the hero. The boy was fighting for his cursed dead hand. The creature did not understand what was happening. Molodic swung with all his might and hit the criminal with a magical part of his body, thereby destroying him. It's a dark night outside. A servant with a flashlight calmly goes to the master's quarters and notices something strange. The servant looks through the open door. His face shows complete horror at what he saw. The devil crawls on the host's bare chest, taking away all life energy. The creature turns its head to the subordinate and smiles at him. The frightened boy runs out of the room and starts calling everyone for help. He is afraid because the young man was killed. The evil force continues to enjoy draining the young man's vital energy. Drops of blood quickly pour from living flesh. New Moon begins to come to his senses. He tries to understand what is happening to him and who is sitting on him. The monster firmly gripped the hero's body with its claws and is not going to let him go at all. The gentleman's face expressed surprise. Without thinking for a long time, he decides to unhook the devil from himself, but his efforts and attempts are completely useless. The demon drags the boy's skin. The creature squeaks very loudly. Parabok tries to understand if evil is trying to eat him. The young man takes the demon's head in his mouth and bites it hard with all his might. The blood of the evil creature begins to flow down the young man's body. Drops of liquid quickly fall on the amulet. Magical power fills the entire space around the master. He is completely confused by what is happening. A young girl and an old woman run into the room. A grandmother calls out to her grandson in fear. The young man's face looked surprised. He didn't know who these people were and who they were to him. A memory came into the boy's head, which was activated after the transition. The old woman cried and turned to her relative again. The young girl asked her why Mrs. Jun was so upset because the demon didn't kill the boy. The grandmother quarreled with the girl. She did not understand whether she would be happy if her grandson went to the other world. The new man asked the old woman not to worry. The boy smiled and assured the women that he, Gu Chen, was not that easy to kill. A man entered the room. He complained about how heavy the demonic thought was in this house. In front of him stood the guard of the Jingtet Yan Capital Night Division. He looked very confident. The young man asked his relatives who this stranger was. The grandmother replied that it was a man from the night branch of an organization that specializes in demonic incidents. The representative talked about how the yang energy of Hao residents was very strong. He assumed that with the appearance of unclean power in such a place, it could only be because of a person. The girl did not like this answer of the gentleman. She couldn't understand who could be so bold as to harm their young master. The man did not know what the situation was now, but in his opinion, he was really lucky this time. Gu Chen clenched his fists. He turned to the guest to see if he could show him the way to salvation. If in this case it is normal, it does not mean that it will be the same in the future. The watchman of the capital's night division remarked that the young man was very brave. He had only two ways: The first way is to find monks or Taoist priests who are deeply versed in Taoism to purify the boy's yin. But this will only protect him for a while, not for life, the hero thought. He wondered what the second way of solving the problem would be. Another way was to join the Jing Knight unit. The gentleman's life is noble, so he could recommend him for admission in the night section of the Eastern District. The old man asked whether this option would provide him with complete security. He seemed to remember that this place specialized in working with ghosts and evil spirits. The invitee replied that it was dangerous, but Jing could teach him cultivation, and no one could protect him but himself. Pan headed for the exit. He asked Gu Chen to think whether to stay with him or leave. The boy was standing behind him. The grandmother asked the guest to stop. She wanted to understand why her grandson would go to such a place. The woman and the girl also decided to leave Mr. himself. The young woman looked at him and said that he should rest. The new moon is lying in bed. He reflects on past events and looks closely at the amulet. The young man remembered his life, especially what happened that day. This jade pendant that he bought in the market helped him to be reborn in another world. In his opinion, this ghost also disappeared thanks to this find. Gu Chen was surprised as the ornament once again lit up with a magical glow. This time, the hero moved again in space, but this time inside the pendant. He was right. The terrifying mystical creature was here too, standing right in front of him. The hero, not fully understanding the situation, grabbed his head. With his other hand, he grasped the magical item from around his neck. The devil smiled at him. It didn't seem like he had the same hostility as before. It seems that this jade pendant still has the ability to subdue evil power. The creature squealed happily and pointed a finger at the young man in the opposite direction. Gu Chen understood that the little demon wanted to help him find a way out of the dimension. The boy agreed with the devil and took the ornament in his hands, which immediately lit up. He wanted to try to find a solution to this situation. Magical power quickly and sharply filled the room and knocked them off their feet with a wave of energy. He realized that this was a great waste of spiritual power. It seems like you can't stay outside for long as hell, but it was another way of self-preservation. Gu Chen questioned the monster about what else it could do besides eat people. The demon looked confused. Suddenly, a vision appeared in the darkness. In the center of the portal stood two figures, a man and a woman. The lady was angry because the worthless creature could not kill her nephew. Pan did not understand why his inner demon had lost contact with him. The main character realized that the person who wanted to kill him was his own aunt. The old man was angry because of the news. The following events will take place in the afternoon at the training ground of the stately residents of Hao. Parabok is completely focused on his task. With all his might, he makes a swing and then hits the stone pillar. The man noticed that his actions split the stone. This means that he must have reached the initial stage of external training, and he can now be considered to have crossed the threshold of a cultivator. The boy turned to Mr. It was all thanks to the representative teaching him two mysterious techniques. He replied to the hero as if this is just a base. If he wants to get better, then he will have to improve himself. Gu Chan clenched his fists and looked confidently at the interlocutor. He answered him. That everything understands from his words. The man asked the young man which path he would choose, a key practitioner or a martial arts master. The new moon asked whether it is possible to choose the first and the second, but human energy is limited, and it will be quite difficult to cultivate it to the top. There are 9 stages of key cultivation: purification, nourishment of the spirit, contemplation, astral deity, beginning, coming to the start, spiritual wandering, knowledge, earthly immortality. There were the same number of martial arts: external and internal training, striking with bones, letting out blood, watching the mountains and the sea, the gates of heaven, transcendence, the genius of war. Pan suggested practicing the art first and learning the rest as an aid. Gu Chan listened to him and replied that he understood everything. He was interested in what path he was cultivating and at what level he was. The representative said that he was moving in the combat direction. After speaking about another topic, he grabbed a stone beam with his hand. The man broke everything into small pieces with a light movement. His art level was the 7th dice strike. Ki gathered in them, the corresponding brain was purified. The truth was compressed and compared to a sword. He wondered why the young man agreed to join the Jing Night Division if he was the son of the valiant Hao. The guy was standing in front of him. The world was in chaos, an evil power ruled, and no one could protect it but him. The representative praised him. The servant turned to the young gentleman with the fact that the wagon was ready and was waiting for him. Gu Chan informed the man that it was time for him to leave. He let the young man go. The grandmother asked Chenna to take care of her when he came to Haiyang. The woman asked him to buy whatever he wanted without worrying about money. The grandson asked his relative not to worry because he can already take care of himself. The new man wished his brother a happy journey. He was the son of Gu Chan's second uncle, Gu Zheng. The young man thanked the younger man. He was the reason his aunt wanted to get rid of him. The woman collected her tears in a handkerchief. She spoke as if she was sad to see her nephew decide to go so unexpectedly. He asked his relative not to worry. Chenna will definitely return to them. This person seemed too strange to him. The wagon with the young gentleman set off. Relatives watched as the young man moved away from them. The old man waved his hands at them from the window. One day Gu Chen will come back here and trample this capital. A young gentleman is sleeping peacefully, sitting and bowing his head in a carriage. Suddenly, loud noises are heard from outside. Two exiles are standing in front of the wagon. One of them is from the Hall of the Broken Sword, Han Ting. The other is from the Xiangsha family ghost hand in Ganhing. The traitor informed the criminals that the boy was unarmed and asked for payment for the work done. The heathen smiled. He asked not to worry and promised to give everything. With a swift movement of the sword, he cut off the man's head. Another exile remembered the teacher's words that the boy was not strong and therefore the first could handle him alone. The one-eyed man smiled and assured to rely on him. He went to the carriage with the future victim. Approaching the wagon, he placed his sword directly against the window and leaned against something incomprehensible, like a sack. The exile thought that the young master was resisting. Because of this, the criminal hit the object with all his might. Enchanted powder poured out of the package and immobilized Han Ting. Gu Chen placed his sword directly at the young man's throat and attacked him swiftly and clearly. Another exile shouted loudly, calling for his brother. His expression was frightened. The criminal was surprised. He didn't expect that the young man would have a weapon. Gu Chen pushed the young man to the floor. Fortunately, the jade pendant could store protective items, which helped to catch him off guard and kill him. The new moon advised him to rest in peace and pierced the antagonist's body through and through. Ganhing called out to Han Ting again and again. He was afraid for his closest brother in fate. The young gentleman swung hard and pushed the criminal away from him. The guy took off at breakneck speed. The body of the first exile clearly fell into the second. His brother's body blow really surprised him. Gu Chen snuck up on the heathen. Suddenly he showed his magic hand. It was big and dangerous. The hero was surprised at this turn of events. Ganhing attacked the young man sharply and confidently so that he was knocked back by a shockwave. The old man spat blood, and the antagonist smiled and spoke as if the sword would do no good. He showed him the demonic upper limb of the corpse. It was too big and would have scared anyone very much. Gu Chen noticed that his left hand was expressing a strange yin aura, and it looked problematic, so it needed to be dealt with first. The criminal noticed that his strength was on the path of 9 ranks, but he already had experience. Although the young man killed his brother by fate, he will not have a chance to defeat the second exile. In his opinion, this freak's hand must be the vein-cutting technique recorded in the astral deity art. The practitioner took blood to restore the structures, and all the power is concentrated in it. If it was really so, the young man had a chance to win. It was not fashionable to underestimate the enemy, otherwise you can die yourself. The heathen went mad. He promised to chop the hero into mincemeat. After these words, he immediately swung at the young man. Gu Chen tried to defend himself with his sword, but Ganxing ordered the weapon to break. The blade crumbled in front of my eyes. The exile pushed the young man down. He promised the new moon that the end was finally waiting for him. The young gentleman decided that it was high time to summon a creature from the other world, thanks to a magical amulet. The small demon stopped attacking the man, who was in shock as this creature was at the 5th level. He wanted to know how the young man could control him. The young man replied to the enemy that he was already dead, so there was no need for him to ask such a large number of questions. The antagonist smiled and assured that he would not have a chance against 5 devils, but there was only one he would not harm him in any way. Gu Chen exclaimed that his goal was not the life of an oddball. The man was surprised. Since it was a ghost, it could be absorbed into the jade pendant. The young man destroyed the pagan's upper limb. The dead man's hand was indeed the source of his power, but the absorption took away a lot of spiritual energy from the boy. A part of Gan Hing's body disappeared. He called the boy a bad word and begged to return his component. The boy questioned him and later replied that he was not returning his debts. After these words, he kicked the sword away. The weapon pierced the heathen's body right through. Gu Chen calmly watched life leave. It was close. Without the jade pendant, he probably would have died. Parubok leaned over to the first exile and saw a textbook in his cloak. It was the art of the sword. He could use such a find. The hero thought that if these are no longer alive, then others will come to protect themselves, so it was better to move along the path. Gu Chen walked along the chosen route. In his opinion, this broken sword technique might seem easy, but it was so versatile that it could work with many types of weapons, which was very convenient. It was almost dark, and the young gentleman continued on his way, so he had to find a place to rest. An old building appeared in the field of vision. Looks like this town will be his roof over his head tonight. Entering the middle of the building, Gu Chen saw a strange statue with eyes that glowed very strangely in the darkness and filled him with terror. The boy questioned them. He wondered who was here. There were 3 people in the room. The man wanted to protect himself from the uninvited guests, but he assured them not to worry because he was just a trickster. The girl asked her uncle to put away the sword and not to frighten the young man. The relative agreed with her. Moladik thanked for the reception. The old man asked him why he did not warm himself by the fire if the night was so cold today. Gu Chen was about to reply, but their conversation was interrupted by an unfamiliar female voice. Someone urged the brother and others to be faster. A beautiful young lady entered the room and was surprised to see so many new people. The tired young man assured his relative that there was no need to rest and suggested that he continue his journey. The younger one assured him that there was nowhere to rush and offered to sleep first. The newlyweds sat down by the fire. One of them was surprised at such a fate. It was Jiang Hanlin, a prominent scholar of the Qinyuan sword clan of eastern Lin County. The girl understood who they were and was glad to meet. The girl's name was Han Jingjing. She was from the Qingyun Sword Guild, but followed her elder brother to explore the world. Nearby is Zhao Xinghua, a scholar found on his way to the capital to take an exam. The young gentleman introduced himself as Gu Chanan, an ordinary adventurer. The interlocutors looked at him with surprise. The young woman suggested that everyone tell some stories because the night is long and it is necessary to pass the time. Since the young lady liked it, the wise man decided to start with his story about the tiger. It is said that a person eaten by this creature becomes a ghost and lures passers-by for him. Then, when a new victim appears, he lets go of the past. Han Jingjing added that the creatures are so evil that they help animals harm humans. The scientist assured that such qualities are characteristic of such creatures as are present in this room. Gu Chen now also wanted to tell an interesting story. Those present listened to him attentively. During his night walk, Zhan San met several passers-by at the Temple of the Mountain Gods and struck up a good conversation with them. The man opened the door and asked the young man why the young man was talking to himself. There was no one in the room. The old man was sitting alone, warming himself by the hearth lit in the middle of the room. Han Jingjing asked if the persons who were talking to him were ghosts. She looked confused and scared. Gu Chen smiled and assured the young man that no one would ever tell them the truth like that. The girl's older brother replied that the stories they were telling were more scary than heroic, so he asked permission to add a case from personal experience. A year ago, on the battlefield in Haitian County, the evil Taoist practitioner Qi turned all the corpses into zombies. The guy happened to be nearby at that time, so he killed all the zombies with his sword and did not leave a wet spot from them. He remembers the night when the moon was so bright that the stars went out and the wind was intermittent, just like now. At the moment, something strange was happening outside. Everyone present was not joking. There were zombies in the middle of the street. The monsters were moving in their direction, creating utter chaos in their path. The elder brother could not believe it. The young man asked the boy if he was talking about such creatures. These corpses must have been very weak, but it wasn't easy to deal with so many zombies. The younger one assured her relative that he was doing well in terms of killing zombies, so she gave him her sword. Parabok understood that she did it on purpose. The young woman interrupted their conversation. The space in the temple of the mountain god is small. If the monsters gather together, they will be able to stop them. The beauty broke through the wall and ordered those present to follow her straight to the exit. People are in the dark and everyone is trying to escape from the zombies who have been enchanted by evil spells. The hero was surprised because even fire could not stop these bad creatures. Pagans confidently fly after everyone who ran out of the strange building. Their eyes are filled with anger and aggression. One of the creatures crept up to the young lady's back, but she fought him off in time, thereby destroying the monster. The man pierced the remains of the zombie. He specifically aimed at the upper part of the body to injure more. The older brother fought off the monster's attacks. He mentioned that their weakest point is the head. The young man agreed with his statement and confidently hit the target. The scientist did not take a single step away from him because he was frightened by what he saw. Unexpectedly, the wise man began to speak as if he knew that this trope was a descent. He wanted everyone to follow him. The elder brother called his sister to go with him. The girl has already extended her hand to him. Both relatives looked too scared. The hero asked his new acquaintances not to go with the scientist. In his opinion, something was clearly wrong with that. The man spoke as if he was too kind to him to save him, but the boy suspected him. He considered it a great ingratitude. After that, the weirdo wished them luck in the fight against the zombies and decided to leave their company. He immediately followed the path he was talking about. The guy offered the little girl not to stand as a pillar, but to go with him. The girl wanted to deny him, but he grabbed her hand. Another young woman noticed what the young gentleman was saying. As if something is wrong with the man, why not believe him then? Parubok continued to kill monsters. He said everything he had to say, but if they didn't believe him, then nothing could be helped. The relatives still decided to leave. The brother ordered the sister to go, and he himself had to detain them. The boy understood that nothing good was expected from this stranger. Unexpectedly, the new acquaintance flew out of the way back in a strange way. Someone attacked the young man. A relative asked him how he was feeling. The young man could not utter a word because of the pain. A monster was already waiting for them at the very top of the trail. It was a demonic apparition. The scientist looked after the victims with a smile. He looked very angry, like he was under a spell. The old man noticed that, as in the story with the tiger, Zhao Xinghua was the same evil force. Han Jingjing asked Gu Chen to help her brother. Fear reigned in the girl's eyes. Melodic realized that the situation is now very critical, and if they are left without their elder, the situation will be even more unfavorable for them. Unexpectedly, the monster appeared behind the girl. He was going to swing first and then kill her. The young man was angry. It didn't suit him that the worthless tiger dared to make a mess without his presence. He asked the boy to leave this beast to him, and he himself had to go and deal with the zombie. Gu Chen, without thinking, and asked the young master to be more careful. A very strong aura was coming from the monster. The hero decided to try the broken sword technique. Unfortunately, this option will not work if you only use one weapon. The young man had a new plan. The young master decided to activate the dead man's cursed hand. The man quickly and with all his strength hit the monster so that it was thrown to the floor. The otherworldly creature lay there and showed no signs of life. His hand was torn off from the blow. Gu Chen didn't expect this upper limb to be so strong. Just one attack and the demonic tiger will be resting. The energy of this monster strengthened the young man's body. He wondered if with each new kill of the evil creature his capabilities increased. The scientist ran happily. In his opinion, complete freedom finally reigned. The young man objected to his words. The spirit eaten by the tiger is still the same ghost. The seal of the golden light of the art of the astral deity must influence its action. With a light movement of his fingers, the boy directed a magic sign at the scientist. The smart man was very scared. The heathen's body began to disappear, and later there was nothing left of the bewitched scientist. It was the action of the yin power that ghost killing brings. The power of the demons was strangely different. According to the boy, if you improve your strength with this method, practicing 2 cultivation ways at once will not be a problem. During the conversation, the young lady and gentleman heard strange sounds coming from behind them. Brother and sister asked to help them. Young people were again attacked by zombies. Gu Chen made every effort to help his new acquaintances and deal with the evil force. The older brother asked if the girl was okay. Han Jingjing replied, He was positive because she felt better now. Young people stood in a circle. Terrible creatures surrounded them from all sides. With each step, they came closer to them. The hero understood that there were too many of these zombies. A fight was not the way out of this situation. Another fellow replied that the corpses had to be guided by someone. The heathen must be somewhere nearby. The young man was visibly alert. He wondered if anyone was actually controlling them. The guy answered positively. If they can kill the person controlling these zombies, they will stop moving. The young man understood everything. Most of the mystical creatures walked from a certain side of the forest. This meant that whoever dominated the process should be in the same place. A silhouette could be seen in the middle of the forest in the distance. It was a man wearing a hat that covered the upper part of his face. He held a large stick in his hand, watching the events with interest. Parubka finally managed to see the one he was looking for. In one moment, hostile eyes crossed. They couldn't take their eyes off each other. Guchen said that if they all trusted him, then they should try to hold these zombies while he dealt with this person. The girl answered as if she was ready to fight shoulder to shoulder with him. The elder brother assured to entrust it to them. The young lady believed in him, her beloved master. She was completely confident in his actions. The young man swung his sword at the monster. To himself, he was an outstanding disciple of the Kinyuan sword clan, and the monsters were nothing but trash. He wished them only death. The monster was killed. The sword went through his head. The man wished the young gentleman good luck in this battle. Guchen finally flew to the heathen. He urged him not to hide, because there was nowhere to escape from the end of the lifeline. The old man smiled. He answered as if he was brave, but without courage. After these words, the criminal immediately moved the magic bracelet. At this moment, the young man decides not to drag on for a long time. He immediately activates the cursed hand of the dead. With one swing, he managed to kill all the surrounding monsters. The antagonist was shocked that the young man had the power of the Xiangxi Wu family. The young master was about to attack him. The thief asked not to do this. He tried to justify himself, but did not have time to say a word. The boy hit the heathen with all his might. The instantaneous flow of strong magical energy resulted in his death. The old man's head was completely destroyed. Gu Chen was furious because the thief's words did not apply to him. All the zombies on the battlefield suddenly froze. Brother and sister rejoice because the young man has managed everything. The boy remembered what he had said about it. The hero decided to see if the mystical creature was moving, so he tried to hit it. The monster made no move. The boy asked the girl to watch how mercilessly Gu Chen attacked the monster. In his opinion, this world is a dangerous place, so it was simply impossible to trust such people. Han Jingjing asked the relative why he could trust the ghost so easily. Parabok was embarrassed. He only answered that she had already grown up and it would not be possible to re-educate her at all. The girl quarreled with the old man. She called him worthless because he couldn't handle even such a trifle, and because of him, they were almost never exposed. The grandfather admitted his mistake in this situation. The young lady demanded that he simply set himself on fire and simply die if something like this happened again. The following events will take place with the heroes in a few hours. It was already dawning on the street. The new acquaintances calmly watched the dawn. Gu Chen said that this is where all their paths should diverge. The brother and sister wished the young lady a good journey. The girl asked him to teach her to kill monsters when the opportunity arose. The young woman thanked the old man for the help given to all those present in such a difficult situation. Gu Chen smiled and said goodbye to those present until the next meetings with the same company. The next ones will take place in 3 days. It was daytime outside. The weather was warm and sunny. The right-hand man of the head of the Jing Night Division in the Yellow River, Zui Ziji, asked if the young man was the same smart guy he had been recommended. The boy knelt before him. As a subordinate, he expressed his respect for the master. The man wanted to omit the formality. The commander smiled and replied that the young man had arrived on time and they just didn't have enough hands. He said that the organization had lost many people during the last missions. Gu Chen decided not to answer. He decided to remain silent and listen to him further. The man assured him not to be afraid because he was supposed to work as Xuanji's bodyguard under the beginning of the night patrol, with whom the young man would be safe. Mr. thought that he was once again faced with unnecessary problems because he had enough of his own affairs. It was the Hantan men of the Jing division, the residents of Huanghe. The chief assured him that he was just stuffy in appearance, but in fact deep down he was kind, so there was no need to worry. The man turned to the other guy with the news. Gu Chen was supposed to be his partner, but first he had to choose a Class 9 art. The old man agreed to the master's order without hesitation. He bore the beautiful name of Xiaoi. Young people calmly walked and talked among themselves. The new acquaintance introduced himself to him by his full name, but he could simply call him abbreviated. The boy kindly thanked him. The old man answered. As if there was nothing to thank for, he invited him to come to him. Gu Chen quickly followed him. Suddenly, a terrible monster appeared behind them. The creature tried to attack the woodcutters. The young master asked him what kind of monster it was and what he had forgotten in the Jing building. A kind acquaintance explained that it was Sun Chen Xiul, Ghostface, having fun with his evil power construction. It was not even worth paying attention to. Gu Chen was surprised. Is such a lowly technique as creating ghosts not magic? He wondered if all the people in the night department did that. The guy explained to him that it could be so, but this method is the fastest to achieve, and they all look only at the results and not at the process, so everyone didn't care about these useless rules. The young master mentioned that he had secret magic techniques and could use them openly in the future. The young man also remarked that he likes how the night unit works and acts in different situations. New Moon opened wide the big door. He brought the new brother to the vault, Perubki. She looked exactly at the place where the technicians of the 9 classes were gathered into one hole. Gu Chen observed that the jade pendant allowed him to absorb ghost ki, so with its help, he should be able to cultivate 2 martial arts. He picked up 2 textbooks. Since this was the case, the master decided to choose one technique each, fiery sword and yin chakra, because there was something certain about it. The assistant asked if he wanted to choose his path of dual possession. The answer was negative, as if the young man just wanted to practice. Everything was clear to the young man. As his brother finished picking, he had to take him to his room to rest. They had a lot of work to do in the last few days, so it was worth stocking up on energy. Gu Chen inquired when the missions for the organization of the Jing Night Division usually appeared. The guy did not know the answer to this question, but he was sure that they would definitely appear tomorrow. It was a dark night outside. Piaka lost his temper due to the fact that he lost everything somewhere again. The man looked to the side and was very surprised at the sight he saw in front of him. In the corner was a woman with red threads. She had her back turned to him and was minding her own business. The drunkard was very angry with the lady because he was afraid of her appearance just in the middle of the night. The woman informed him that she was very hungry. She still continued to sit in front of his back and addressed him very gently. The man continued to curse because she did not let him sleep. The lady looked very strange. In her hand was a bleeding chicken head. She turned to him and had a completely different and frightening appearance. The creature repeated that it still really wanted to eat, and the master looked delicious to her. Further events will take place the next day. Outside, the sun was shining again and the weather was warm. The locals were talking to each other. One of them wondered what had happened to the house of an old acquaintance. It was morning, and there were already many guards here. The other gentleman replied that he did not know anything. The firemen came to the scene of the terrible event. Civilians paid a lot of attention to them. Gu Chen was very lucky after all. He faced such a mission only a few days after his arrival. The young man replied that it was for the best for him. He will be able to get to know the night division earlier. The door to the room opened. An unfamiliar voice spoke as if what had happened, even for him, it was very terrible for him. Xiaoi, ask your 2 brothers if this incident is the work of an evil force. In front of them stood the Dark Warrior's protectors. The first was called Zhao Jiming, the second Wang Qi. They explained that it was like a mass murder, but the case was such that a person was not capable of such a thing. The old man asked them if everything was so bad. Gu Chen decided to just remain silent. My colleague would very much like to see which picture was able to shock both relatives. One of them advised that if he gets bored, then he should go out and vomit so as not to spoil anything there, but he wanted to convince him otherwise. He argued that for such a long period of time, the protector warrior had something that he had not seen. Then he should go there. With these words, the young man entered the room. Still, Xiao Yi was in shock, and the boy immediately felt sick. His stomach he felt very bad. A member of the organization tried to understand what it was. The young man entered the room and began to examine the bodies. The view was very scary, but the new moon was very focused. The audience was very surprised that he did not even flinch after seeing this live. One of the defender warriors noticed that he wasn't acting like a rookie at all. Gu Chon, it didn't matter. He was only interested in when the individuals died. The boy looked at him and the master's body with surprise. It was clear that the man had been bitten. It was also noticeable that the woman had died from overeating. In his opinion, there was no need to talk about what exactly she had overeaten. Another confirmed that the influence of evil power was very visible here and asked the boy to check for traces of yin. The guy agreed to his request. It was said that Saowan practiced qi and knew several auxiliary types of talismanic techniques. The young man replied that he immediately understood the words of his new colleagues. The brother took out the talisman and grasped it with 2 fingers, after which it quickly activated. It was a talisman of the great dragon's aspiration. The force was very powerful. He released a boon that was supposed to begin sweeping the entire area at the crime scene. Unexpectedly, the little dragon returned to his master. He told him something and the owner understood him. The reason was that there was indeed an aura of evil in the house, but the spirit itself did not influence the body and must have acted on the mind. But now, all the evil had almost dissipated so that it was impossible to trace it. According to the boy, if that was the case, it would be a problem. Luo's departure was very big, and they did not know where to find this secret ghost now. Suddenly, the young man had a new idea, but he was not 100% sure whether it was true. The warrior brothers listened to him attentively. They asked Mr. to tell about the plan so that together they could think about further actions. Gu Chan assumed that the woman must have gone somewhere to attract the evil's attention, and finding out the lady's location could lead them to some clues. Xiaoi objected because she must have been to many cities, so it was too difficult to detect. Moladik agreed with him, so it was because of this that his second conclusion was verified. A question was heard to the brother who was standing by the door. It was worth finding out if there were other people nearby recently who also died from overeating. The boy agreed with their words. As it seemed to them, there were several more cases before that. The young master was waiting for this answer, so he asked the other to bring him the Luo card. The young man wondered why he wanted her. He replied that it must be necessary himself in order to find the demon. The following events will take place on Kangping Street. The place was quite busy and the weather outside was also good. Gu Chen noticed that the brother was really good because he immediately found the necessary location. For the future plan, only a little trick was needed. After opening the map, he realized that those who died from overeating may not have eaten people, but it seemed to him that it was the demon that drove them to death. Having constructed the trajectory of the lines, it was possible to see exactly where the routes cross. After thinking a little more, he realized that it was in this mark that the thief should be. Remembering this, a memory related to the same strange man immediately came to his mind. The old man informed the young man that all the people had already left. Gu Chen noted that everyone present had done a good job with the task at hand. The poor man sat in front of the men, smiling and looking at them, embracing the strange vat with his arms and legs. My colleague was very surprised. Was this beggar the mystical being they had been looking for so long? Moladik objected to his words. In his opinion, this was not who he really was. He paid special attention to the pot, which the stranger held so tightly and suspiciously in his hands. The warrior protector asked those present why they were frozen in place and invited them to come and greet the stranger. The man smiled slyly and asked the young man to lend him a small amount of food. Black and unknown smoke was coming from the strange object. No one could understand what was happening now. He promised to pour him a little rice, but first he had to show the pot he was holding. The heathen smiled and threatened that if they did not give him food, they would simply be able to leave him without your treasure, and hinted that they were just like those bad people. The stranger said that they deserved to die. After that, the magical thing exploded and negative energy came out of it. The man's eyes filled with black. His organs of vision acquired a red color, his bones broke, and his body did not keep its shape at all. He looked too scary. The boys shouted to each other as if everyone should be more careful about what is happening around them now. After a few minutes, the heathen turned into a terrible monster. His head was turned and tilted to the side, and his stomach formed large spikes with sharp teeth. The mystical creature began to actively crawl towards the heroes and tried to attack them. One of the guards noticed that the monster seemed very strong. Guchen remarked that he appeared to be a 7th-level spirit. The antagonist extended his large paw with sharp claws towards the side where the boys were. One of the guardian warriors tried to use the secret teachings of the white bone by using its shield. Unfortunately, the boy's strategy did not work. The thief pushed him, after which he flew away in the opposite direction. Due to the complex circumstances, he did not think for a long time and decided to ask everyone to draw their attention to him. The second brother suggested that he attack the evil force using joint efforts. Parubok quickly flew straight to the monster and ordered him to visit his mighty blow. The monster laughed at him and with ease instantly pushed him away from him. The other defender at this moment decided to try the secret teachings of the white bone again, but this time using a chain. Immediately, long chains were formed that bound the evil being, and he was in complete panic. The third boy decided to use the yin-yang talisman. He took out his cards and flipped them towards the monster. The mystical creature did not understand what was happening at all. Magic signs swirled above his head. The young man ordered him to fall immediately. After a few seconds, the monster was already lying on the floor and could not move at all. Molodik informed the protagonist that now it was his turn to attack the pagan. The young master decided to use the flaming sword technique for this case. Having heated the weapon, he wanted to immediately pierce the head of the terrible mystical creature. The colleague thought that everything worked out, but the other man was afraid that in this particular situation, everything was arranged not so easily. Parubok actively tried to pierce his skin, but the monster's body was very strong and did not succumb to any influence. Having created a hole inside the nose, he was very surprised because the heathen rose right in front of him. The thief laughed loudly at him. Guchen did not understand how such a situation could even happen to them. Unexpectedly, a mystical creature enveloped the young master, thereby luring him into a trap. The monster became snake-like and had a long tongue that was covered with many blisters. It was he who tried to attack the young man. The evil creature managed to carry out his plan, and he attacked the new moon. Guchen was surprised by such a powerful force. The monster managed to free himself from the bone chains that restrained his hands. He began to growl loudly and attack the woodpeckers. They definitely should have been more careful. This demon's yin power had greatly increased, and it was the same hunger demonic creature. After the young man remembered this fact, the pagan swung at him with all his might. The young master asked Cao Wan to bow immediately against the attack of the strong and insane monster. Suddenly, something strange happened, because at one point, the boy was protected by a stranger. The savior managed to repel the attack of evil power. The master told them not to even strain, because he can deal with this demon himself. The young people understood that it was a powerful and brave acquaintance of theirs, whose name was Mr. Men. With just a few moves, he managed to completely defeat the evil creature. The young man noticed how cool the man was. Guchen decided to just remain silent at this moment. The young man decided to ask if the guy was hurt. He replied that it was all right, and if the master was already here, they could even drink tea. The strong man continues to fight the monster and eventually takes his life completely. Parubok noticed that the sword of the representative of the organization was moving very quickly. In his opinion, this was expected of a 7th-grade martial artist. The boy was sure that he was the fastest swordsman in Hengyong province. This demon couldn't even do anything against him. Unexpectedly, the monster deflected the man's attack, and he was thrown to the side by a powerful wave of negative energy. Gu Chan remarked that the strong man now had every chance to become useless. Cao Ai chose not to answer him. One of the defending warriors wanted to help Mr. Men. He decided to use his secret teaching by trying a bone spear. The weapons collided sharply and quickly, and magical power flew to attack the monsters. The blades swirled in the mystical monster's tongue. The creature was completely unaware of what was happening. The Gentile's mouth organ was cut off, and he began to lose his strength. Mr. Men gathered all his strength to finally and victoriously attack the ugly thief. He groaned in pain, and a whole river of blood immediately began to flow from him. Gu Chan knew that now was his time. He had a perfect chance to use the dead man's cursed hand. The men simultaneously attacked the monster. One of them used a burning sword song while the other used a human blade. At that moment, the evil demonic spirit was instantly completely torn to pieces. Everyone who was present at this incident was in complete shock and did not understand the situation. A terrible monster lies on the ground without a head, with a torn-off arm and a mutilated neck right in front of the young men. Guchen noticed that the missions of the night division were really dangerous, and if he wasn't currently restrained, he could be killed. The monster was lying unconscious, which is why the young man decided to come closer to him. The black smoke billowing from the monster's forehead is quickly drawn into the magic amulet. It was the power gained from killing a hunger demon again. It seemed to him as if these were two directions of energy. One, yin, which was stored in his channels, and the second strengthened his physical body. Mr. Men noted that it was the thunder of a brave warrior, that is, the 8th level of internal training. The young man congratulated his brother on the acquired achievement of new, powerful energy capabilities. Guchen replied as if all of this was just a lucky coincidence that happened to him. The man ordered the bodyguard soldiers to be responsible for completing the work. They immediately agreed to his request. He also wanted the young man to go with him. The young man had no choice and he agreed. Mr. Men added, as if he thought that he was no different from the others, but he was wrong. Without him today, he would be able to suffer losses. The old man assured him that the man would be able to deal with this demon himself. The elder reminded that he had discovered where the demon of hunger was and killed him, so he should have received a great reward for this operation. He wanted to report this to the Jing department later, and he was to be given the highest grade of achievement. Guchen thanked him for this. The man also mentioned that the young man had risen to the 8th level of internal training and suggested that when the time came, he would take a look and choose 2 more techniques. The subordinate answered as if he understood him. In his opinion, Mr. Men was really a soulful person. Work under his leadership should not have caused any problems. The next events will take place in 3 days. The weather was warm and sunny outside again as usual. Cao Ai reported that they had been patrolling here for several days after the incident with the hungry demon, and so far so good. Molodik thought that if nothing else happened, he would finish this matter. The boy asked what mysterious techniques the brother decided to choose for himself to study. The young man's choice fell on the bone-cleansing treatise and the golden light seal to destroy demons. The colleague was happy because the first option could provide a basis for internal forces and the second would help to cope with the cultivators. This combination was really good. He also noticed that the boy was so gifted and at the same time worked so confidently that his friend was very impressed by his capabilities. Gu Chen replied as if the boy was just very shy. He noticed that unlike the other, he liked to sleep in brothels. In his opinion, it was just a dream, so why it was worth money was unclear. The young fellow replied that he was still young and would know these things when he was older. Something happened on the street. The boys decided to go see all the events with their own eyes. There was a quarrel. One of the men shouted that he was very stingy and didn't give him a pear. The seller replied that he only had a small business and asked him not to create problems. The scandalist continued to threaten that if he did not give her to him, he would raise her himself. After these words, the stranger quickly opened a bottle with some liquid, and it spilled all over the asphalt. A new tree began to grow on the territory that was filled with spilled contents. In a few seconds, a large and sprawling pear appeared before the eyes of observers. The seller's goods mysteriously disappeared from the counter, leaving behind empty shelves. The man began to cry over his pears. He had to sell them to pay for his mother's treatment. The scoundrel went on to say that this would teach him not to be so stingy in the future. Cao Ai was very angry, but the young master asked him not to worry, as if he was going to teach the criminal a lesson. Gu Chen wanted to explain to him that this was their territory. He did not understand how the old man could behave so badly. He forced the man to realize his mistake and return the money to the man and disappear from here forever. The trickster smiled and asked if he had any complaints about what he respectable and great does. The boy took out a sword and started threatening him. He did not understand how he dared to call himself that in his presence. It seemed to him as if his grandfather was tired of living. The young gentleman was so angry that he even wanted to help him with this bad deed. He had suspicions that this non-monk was connected with the dark forces, so he had him go with them to the Jing division to clarify this point. The heathen laughed. He thought they were here because of a person, but they turned out to be from an organization. Gu Chen announced that insulting people from the community was another violation on his part. The enchanted old man decided to attack the young man. Crossing his fingers, he asked if he wanted to condemn him, and if the boy had the strength for it. He decided to use the magical power of diamond life to protect himself. Melodic did not understand what was happening at the moment. His face looked surprised and tense. The evil spirit stood behind the heathen. Now he is big, he wanted to show these dogs a few lessons. Cao Ai offered to help the young master because this Taoist priest was not easy to deal with. The boy refused as if it was just a recorded sorcerer's technique which should not be feared. The negative creature became angry with the man because the impolite servant agreed with his insolent remarks. Parabok decided to keep up with the monster and use his method of protection against evil forces. He decided to attack him with a secret burning sword song technique that he could use to control his mind. The antagonist was blown to the floor by the shockwave, and he lunged at the young gentleman. Unexpectedly, something strange, very similar to a long snake, flew straight towards the new moon. The boy wanted to warn Gu Chen in time about the danger that was already approaching him. The young man noticed something wrong right next to his ear and was able to bend down in time to avoid the blow. He considered the thief a mean receptionist. The evil force immediately went in the opposite direction to its owner, thereby injuring him. The man cursed at him again for what he thought was his daring to underestimate his majesty. Gu Chen decided to use the technique again, but this time plowing through the broken sword technique using the whip of destruction. A large fire dragon attacked the old man and damaged him, knocking him straight to the ground. A sharp weapon injured the arm of the antagonist. He didn't understand where the dark guardian gods had such powerful power. The young gentleman told him that if his brain was still in place, the pagans should stop resisting and go with him. The man did not intend to do this at all. Perhaps he could not win, but he did not plan to give up either. Suddenly, a large and powerful explosion occurred in the room. No one could understand what happened at that moment. Copies of the old man were sticking out from all sides, and a large hole was formed in the roof. Each of the clones sat on the edge of the building and laughed loudly at them. Each of them said that he was a real thief and wanted to be caught. Molodik asked his colleague what they would do. Gu Chen replied as if it was worth finding out which one was the real one. It was at this moment that a brilliant idea came to his head. He decided to finally summon his spirit demon. The creature immediately came at his call. The small creature instantly attacked the heathen, and after that began to stick to his body, trying to appropriate him. Suddenly there was a big explosion. The real old man who was watching all these events could not understand what was happening. The little devil flew away and had a bad understanding of what had just happened. Gu Chen remarked how ridiculous the old man was because he was still using the same childish tricks. The man realized that he had been bitten and wanted to run away. The young gentleman noticed his strange actions and asked him if he wanted to hide. After these words, he and his brother asked everyone to go in pursuit of the criminal. The boy left to pick up his husband and repeated that he definitely had nowhere to run. With all his might, Parabok slashed his sharp sword right into the back of the old oddball. Unfortunately, the sword remained stuck in the wall, and the heathen immediately managed to escape in an unknown direction. Gu Chen noticed that the old man was too clever. Cao Ai was standing next to him looking very confused. He informed the young man that this scoundrel might be a member of the evil Luo cult. The boy heard about this organization for the first time in his life, so I decided to ask my colleague again. Luo, White Lotus, and Maitreya are the main cults of the Great Qian Kingdom, located in the east and west. The three sects represented a mixture of Buddhist and Taoist secret techniques that were passed down through the generations. It was believed that they were strong enough to use illusions that, while not killing, could warp anyone's mind and drive them insane. In order to prevent the three cults from disturbing the peace of the Great Qian Kingdom, 500 years ago, the management took the initiative to send troops to Liutian and stop them. The first of the over-acidified organizations disappeared without a trace after that. But in recent years, spirits of the revival of these unions have appeared. Gu Chen understood that the departure of the Eastern Lin was located in the central part of Qian and was not included in Luo's sphere of influence. Because of this, he did not understand why they had to appear here. The old man thought that if his brother could not understand this, then he would not understand it at all. It was necessary to tell Mr. Men about everything first. The boys went into the room. Sao, I was glad that the master had returned, but after a minute his emotions changed. The man was sitting on a chair completely bandaged with bandages that were completely soaked in blood. He was asked about what had happened to him and who had inflicted such a serious wound on him. He explained as if he had received information that a disciple who had escaped from the Luo sect had returned here again. Because of this turn of events, he and Commander Tsu set up an ambush to capture him. Much to his surprise, he was so strong that he was able to break through their weapons and severely wounded him. The enemy was also struck by Commander Tsui's purple beam. He came through the body, the heart was burned, so now he had to hide in the district to heal his wounds. The gentleman also reported that an order had come from above that if they could kill this heathen, they would receive 100 reward points and 2 bottles of medicine for it. If they managed to capture the prize alive, the prize would be doubled. The old man noticed that there was even more gratitude than for the demon of hunger. It seems that this criminal was very important. The boy informed Mr. May that he and his brother had found a Taoist of the Luo cult, but he ran away. The man thought that maybe they were also looking for a traitor. It seems they should hurry. One of the guard warriors objected to him because the exit was so large that it had 20 or so men from the Jing division. It was not easy to find someone who could hide so well. Mr. I agreed with his opinion, but if they were to slow down for too long, the traitor will surely heal and escape. The young man had an idea that could work. The elder was ready to listen to his plan. He remembered that there must have been an underground guild that left with the help of status in the night department they could be raised. In his opinion, this was a good idea, because with their numbers and experience, they had a better chance of finding a pagan from the Luo cult than the organization. He turned to the protector warrior because he was familiar with those people, which meant that he could take on this particular matter with his brother, and the others had to help them. Molodik agreed. Gu-chan asked him to find out how many members of the underground guild were on the train and which of them could help them. He replied that there were many large and not very necessary objects in the district, but the only worthy one from the list was only the clan of the Blue Flower. He controlled illegal gambling and brothels. The head of the Dark Dagger Hall, Hua Qing, was responsible for the latter. He suffered a lower back injury at an early age when he got into a fight and became strange. Lai Pan was the deputy head of the Blue Flower Guild. This man was a strong fighter in terms of prestige, and was second only to an oddball in terms of opportunities. The man trusted that person so much that he left all gambling business matters to him. The old man assured that the two were not weak, but they would not offend the Luo cult because of them. Even if the external ones agree, one cannot be sure that they will help with the search. The young gentleman agreed that it would be a problem if they deliberately delayed. It was necessary to come up with a safe way for this case. He also recalled that he had said that Hua Qing was strange and asked him if he knew how much. The young man was a little embarrassed, for he was a little inconvenient to tell them of so delicate a case. The Parubkas did not understand what to expect further from the most strange speech of the warrior protector. The following events took place at the Blue Flower training ground. The guy actively lifted the barbell with large weights on his sides. Unexpectedly, he realized that someone was watching him very strangely and spying on his actions. Molodik was in a state of complete misunderstanding and confusion about what was happening to him now. The stranger replied that lately the substitute's body had become stronger and more beautiful. Hua Qing kept hinting to Lai Pan, but Lai Pan paid no attention to him at all. The young gentleman did not expect that the oddball would have such admiration and preferences. The old man remarked that Lai Pan's subordinates were not as lucky in the organization as he was. A large number of servants suffered at the hands of the madman. It is mentioned how one of the attendants cried. She laughed because she said that he would bear the responsibility, and everything was absolutely true. He confirmed that, unfortunately, the lad was also a great fighter who was very unlucky with such a head. Gu Chen asked why they don't push the boat upstream and do Lai Pan a favor. Mr. Meng asked how exactly the young gentleman was going to do it quickly and successfully. He explained that despite the fact that these madmen seemed to live in peace and harmony, but in reality, one of them was definitely harboring a grudge in his soul. In his opinion, if the Night Division ignites the fire in time, these two will definitely have a fight, the guy thought. That if they help him deal with the heathen, then he will become more acceptable, as he will have a debt to the organization, and when the time comes, they will ask him to help. The young man fully agreed with the words of his closest colleague from the organization. Mr. Man replied that it was all good, but he wondered how he was going to light this fire. Guchen explained that he would only need Sawai's help for this. Parubok was surprised because he did not expect that he would be a necessary part for the implementation of the work plan. Dark evening has come in the city. Local people went outside to relax and unwind. The young girls sat by the wide open window and called their uncle to come in to play. Hua Qing was lying in his seat, resting his body on the round pillow. Opposite him stood one of the attendants. The man was actively massaging the crazy pervert, but was simply silent out of fear. Unexpectedly, something did not suit the young oddball, and he hit his subordinate on the cheek with all his might. According to the pervert, there was something wrong with his face, as if he was mourning someone. He ordered him to leave immediately. The man was shocked and immediately after a second flew out of the room of the terrible stranger. While in the corridor, the beaten man began to laugh, and the girl standing at the entrance was very surprised by his behavior. Hua Qing explained everything to that, as if not one of these not good people had been honest with him. The girl informed the head of the hall that there was some weirdo outside and asked him to go and look at it. The inadequate young gentleman questioned the girls once more, because he didn't understand what was happening. The following events will take place at the same time, but on the lower floor of an unusual building. The girls talked among themselves. They were clearly talking about a certain person. The stranger offered the officer a drink. The guy quickly agreed to her offer and thanked her for the kindness. The lady asked again, as if he had not been with them for the first time. She suggested that he train some of the best girls from their house. The old man was very angry and called her blind, because she did not see that he had already come with someone. The young girl could not say a word because of the shock. She did not expect such a reaction to the proposal. He asked her to calm down, because without their silver, they wouldn't have done anyway. She begged the officer not to be angry, because her subordinates had a narrow outlook. His Majesty believed that if the guest was not satisfied, he would certainly take his side, and then they would bring him their honest condolences. Gu Chen replied as if it didn't matter to him, but they had upset his girlfriend. Hua Qing smiled and looked very slyly towards the newly arrived young men. It's as if she didn't understand a little bit that the officer was not into women, and in that case, he was interested in what he was doing in a brothel. The young man replied that it was not necessary to think about it, and it was all so that his acquaintance could learn new tricks. The girl was so upset and thought she hated them. The pervert continued to turn his attention to him. He liked how obedient he was. The guy took a glass in his hands and answered that they did not know, and as if before that, he was also a normal man and was not a subordinate at all. He just used a little trick to make him what he looks like now. Hua Qing was waiting for what he would say. He would very much like to hear the details. The officer laughed and promised for his honesty to tell him all the necessary information. The man held a glass in his hands and asked the men if they were serious about it. Mullah Dick explained that when he came to the brothel to have fun, he heard by chance that he wanted to drink poison, which was able to turn the master into a mushroom that completely obeyed. Someone told the brother that he had come to him to tell everything, since Mr. Man was widely known in Liutian, so it was impossible to look at how he was openly insulted. He asked the guest not to joke with him about such things that were too important to him. The boy could not joke about such a thing because his friend was also there and heard it, and even he could confirm all the words he said. Gu Chen assured that every word said by his colleague was the truth. He introduced himself and said that his parents gave him such a name in order to keep loyalty and honesty for the rest of his life. The young fellow said that if there was even an iota of untruth in the things he had said before, he should have been killed by a thunderbolt. The warrior protector replied that he was not worthy to bear the name given to him by his relatives. The servants assured that knowing Hua Qing, it could be his such a bad method. Their brothers had already received tea with poison, but he could not be humiliated in any way. A subordinate came with new information. The head of the hall prepared the dinner table and asked him alone to appear at the residence for a conversation. The deputy understood everything, but was going to come up now. This worthless man took his first step. According to the young man, this was the method the pagan was going to use tonight. After all, the chief burned with impatience. The servants were angry. Surely this heathen will ride on them like that. They asked the boss to stop tolerating it. He had to be dealt with. Out of anger, the deputy did not think for a long time, but with all his strength, he sharply hit the table with his fist. The protective warrior explained that the night division had long disliked the thief's behavior. Because of this, he could safely ask them for help if he needed it. In this case, the man without thinking began to ask them for support. A deep and dark night has come. The following events will take place at the Huaqing residence. A crazy person sits while waiting for dinner and looks intently at the product in his hands. Unexpectedly, the person smiles, after which he opens the bottle with one quick and sharp swing. Gu Chen informed him that this medicine was called obedience powder. He had to put it in the food of a loved one, and he will be disposed towards you for the rest of his life. Before the arrival of the master, the disgusting bad pervert decided to pour the entire contents into the teapot. He asked the deputy head of the hall not to blame him, as he loved him very much. Suddenly, someone's steps were heard. The stranger abruptly hid the mysterious object in his robe. A long-awaited and invited guest entered the room together with all the attendants. It was, in fact, the deputy head of the hall. He asked the guest not to be shy and to sit down at the table. The stranger asked if the gentleman wanted a drink after a long journey. Hearing these words, the criminal offered him to wet his throat with a glass of wine. The man was wary, but took it in his hands. He assumed that Huaqing had been very busy lately, which was very upsetting. With these words, the deputy invited the heathen to visit the drink first. The stranger tried to refuse, as if it was nothing serious. The pervert continued to try to get the guest to drink. The invited person became wary and asked why he was trying so hard to escape from the case, and whether it could be because he had added something to a wine drink, for example. The deputy asked if the composition included docile powder. Yuna's face took on a confused look at this time. The pagan was confused, but tried to reassure him, as if the gentleman was just joking. He became very angry and cursed at the young man. The man was patient with him in everything, but he very often deceived others. The pagan was in complete shock from the words he heard from the long-awaited guest. Two subordinates stood behind the deputy. In fact, behind the hats were already familiar hoods from the night division. Gu Chen and Cao Ai stopped hiding. They ordered the man to finish him off as soon as possible. The young man asked him, "Doesn't he know that before death you have to close your bad mouth?" He wished him death. The stranger asked the deputy not to be fooled. He assured that he had not done such a thing and that it was all the handiwork of the young man. The boy put out his sword and asked, as if in such a situation he did not need to resort to trickery because he would die today anyway. The owner asked the Pia Rubak to calm down, as he was thinking about how they would end this performance, and he would leave him an unharmed corpse. The heathen laughed, because he finally understood that they had planned all this for a long time. But despite the circumstances, the person did not want to die at all. Unexpectedly, the weirdo decided to attack all those present who were currently in the room. The boys felt negative energy on themselves. Gu Chen noticed that Huaqing seemed to be resisting. Parubki immediately stood up, with the aim of repelling the strange magical attack made by the thief. At that moment, the heathen suddenly approached the wall and took a large sword from it. He really wanted, that the enemies could feel the taste of his weapons. A fight between young men began. Gu Chen decided to use the broken sword technique, and Huaqing used the dark hand wind technique. In the course of events, the young people only managed to slightly cut each other's cheeks. The antagonist decides to wait for the notification, but the deputy head quickly notices him. The man wanted only one thing, for this scoundrel to die as soon as possible. He started to run after Huaqing. The second wanted to attack his colleague with a sword, but he immediately hit him back. Such an attack was so powerful that the person was thrown out of the window. Unfortunately, the log managed to land well. Gu Chen asked if he thought he could save himself by defending himself. Unfortunately, this was a big mistake. The antagonist noticed that these pieces were very well prepared. He couldn't just fight back, he should have left here to begin with. Only now did Huaqing finally understand what had happened. From the very beginning, they approached the division together and put sticks in the wheels. The defending warriors informed him that he realized it all too late. The team members were already preparing the necessary things for that. He didn't like the fact that the union was following him. In his opinion, the organization could not consider itself good people after such a thing. The old man questioned him, because he could handle him one-on-one. He confesses to the thief that he has nowhere to run. He prepared his mighty flaming sword. It was here that his life path was to end. According to the scoundrel, the boy had a very high opinion of himself. He believed that he was just a night patrol dog. Hua Qing threatened as if anyone standing in his way right now would die. He gripped the weapon tightly with both hands. A magical shield of magical energy appeared around him. Gu Chen noticed that this sword really possessed a very powerful force. The pagan used the eighth shoulder technique, which used the same number of sides of the world. The young gentleman immediately attacked him in return. It was not worth fighting him. The defending warriors were very much surprised by the next events that happened to the heroes. In the middle of the process, a large and very powerful explosion occurred. The guys who were standing nearby were blown away by the blast wave. The enemies stood with their backs to each other, and she was completely intact and undamaged. The members of the organization could not believe what happened before their eyes at that moment. The heathen saw how his body began to corrode. He could not believe it because it was impossible. The body instantly began to dissolve. Gu Chen ordered him to rest in peace, but hoped that there would be men in hell who would like him. Even if Hua Qing was already dying, she wanted to take the boy with her to the afterlife. Immediately after these words, he began to spit out a large amount of blood from his mouth. It was a bloody baby he had traded to Shabadosh for his life, and today was a good day to sacrifice himself. The monster promised those present that now they would sleep in hell with him. Moladik didn't think for a long time, but immediately decided to use the dead man's demonic hand. He immediately attacked the mystical monster and was already expecting a quick result. The baby monster began to shrink right before his eyes, after which the hero decided to finally finish him off. The stranger's body unexpectedly and abruptly fell to the floor without strength in front of everyone present. Hua Qing remarked what a strong man he was. It looked like the person had actually fallen in love. The boys rejoiced very much and informed the master that this scoundrel had finally died. They wept profusely with happiness because the heavenly power had finally heard their prayers. Cao Wai asked Gu Chen why these people were crying. He answered him as if everyone present had some life experience. The man thanked all the brothers from the Night Division for their help. Parabok explained that the fight against evil is the main task of the organization. In his opinion, one way or another, he was now in debt to the Union. And if there was anything that could be helped, he asked them not to be shy in any case and to contact them immediately. Gu Chen replied as if the Night Division really had a case they needed support on. The man asked them to immediately report what they needed so urgently at the moment. He replied as if they wanted to ask him for help to find one sorcerer named Luo Zhao. Parabok was very worried before such an important visit with a representative. The young gentleman asked him to calm down, because the one who should come will always appear before them. The defending warrior ran into the open door. He had news from Mr. He reported that this scoundrel had finally appeared. Cao Wai was so delighted by this news that he couldn't contain his happiness and asked where exactly the thief was. He said that the young man, who had been wanted for a long time by everyone, was hiding in the same place for intimate entertainment. It was good news for the boy. He ordered the people of the Night Division to be quickly gathered because they had captured this mage. The man agreed with his order. Mr. Meng also very much wanted to go with them because he considered it very necessary to fulfill the mission. Gu Chen objected to him because of us that he was quite seriously injured, but in his opinion, the heathen suffered even more. Parubki also learned from several foreign priests that there were other rebels and they were also looking for the scoundrel. He wondered if these people would cause them any trouble. Mr. Meng explained that if they come, they will be caught, which will free the organization from a number of worries. It was full night outside. The young man was resting on the bed and practicing his strength while the girl watched him with displeasure. The new moon said that the beginning of all beginnings and the pure earth had blessed his body. Immediately after these words, he began to cough up blood. It was terrifying for him because he, Luo Zhao, had barely escaped the chase, but the organization was still hunting. He needs to heal his wound, so he had to hide here for now. The girl asked the man why he didn't want to move in with her because he had spent all his savings. If everything continued in the same spirit, then it is not her fault. The beauty assured that she could show a lot of tricks and promised that he would like it very much. The heathen became very angry and immediately ordered the young man to run away from him. She was angry because she was not his mother to take care of him with such injuries. After these words, the lady closed the door loudly. She did not like that she was a person of such a specialty, faced with such an unkind person. At that moment, someone forcibly dragged her into the passage, covering the girl's mouth so that she would not scream. It was Cao Wuman. He held the young woman tightly to him so that she would not have a moment to escape. Two protective warriors and a young gentleman appeared from the darkness. They carefully watched the beauty. Gu Chen calmly asked the young person to just keep quiet for at least a few minutes. The young person was in complete shock from what was happening to her at that moment. The following events will take place in the large double luxury room of this indecent establishment. The thief was confused and kept silent and tried to come up with a plan of further actions in such a situation. Persons from the night division were already waiting for him at the door. They did not make a sound. The footmen opened the entrance. Molodic ordered the pagan not to try to escape again because they would still take him with them. The guy was very surprised to see the next actions of the antagonist. The thief asked him if he was going to catch him because he thought that the boy was not capable of such a thing at all. After these words, he immediately jumped out of the fully open window and landed on the ground. Immediately with that, someone pointed a sword at him with magical power. He decided to grab his hand. Mr. Men was standing before him, and the heathen asked him if he planned to find his death again. The man confidently ordered him to prepare for the end of his lifeline. The thief began to tease him and ask why he was in no hurry to do what he had promised. After these words, the gentleman tried with all his might to swing his sword in the direction of the antagonist. Unfortunately, his most powerful attack didn't work at all on this negative hero. The fugitive's hand stopped the adult man's attack. It was completely unclear. What's going on? The young men promised to help their close friend. The night division thought out a quick plan of action. The enemy asked if they planned to take it only with the equipment of a large number of people. Immediately after these words, he created a large, powerful blast wave of negative energy. After such an attack, the strong man was knocked in the opposite direction, but he managed to stay on his feet. Gu Chen could not believe that he was seeing such impossible things with his own eyes. The pagan decided to invoke the magic of the beginning of all starts, using the world of illusions. He commanded the demonic forces to descend from heaven. At that moment, a very scary ghost appeared behind him. Thanks to this spell, Mr. Meng understood that he had the spirit of Zhan Hanzi hidden inside him, because he could control just such a powerful force. The poor fellows were so thoroughly beaten by the negative energy that they could not do anything. The man warned them to be more careful, because it was a world of illusions. They definitely shouldn't have subjected themselves to these techniques. Cao Ai's face changed unexpectedly. He seemed to be touched by something beautiful and divine. The young man felt as if the essence of the shrine had taken over his body, as if he was condemned to begin all beginnings. They could not simply repel this attack. In his opinion, if this traitor had not been wounded only one, 3 of them would have been able to defeat him. One of the defending warriors decided to use the secret technique of dead man's bones. The pagan's eyes had no pupils, but he was very surprised by this turn of events. 10,000 bone bells appeared before them. Such a number was hard to imagine. The spirit controlled by the thief suddenly stopped obeying him and was not satisfied with this situation. The holy item was able to attack the antagonist with ease and knock him out of all plans. The old man asked to attack him as soon as possible, because he could not restrain the heathen for long. The new moon decided to use Taoist magic for protection using a horse hearth. The dragon was already flying towards its target. The creature quickly wrapped itself around the antagonist, thereby driving him into its trap. Gu Chen immediately decided to come to the aid of his new brother at work. He decided to use the power of the flaming sword to inflict absolute damage on the enemy. The weapon reached the sternum, but the pagan still managed to stop the attack. He asked the boys if this was all they were capable of. After these words, he immediately created a very large energy barrier around himself. At one point, the bad person began to cough up blood very profusely without stopping. Mr. Meng was very surprised because he was possessed by a spirit, and alone they could not do anything at all. Because of this, the man ordered them to attack together. Unexpectedly, the enemy decided to call the beginning of all starts absolute emptiness, relatives, so that they would hear his request. The boys did not understand what was happening. One of them reported that the antagonist's assistants were already here. The thief was pleased with this turn of events. He promised to knock out of them everything that was bad for him. The young gentleman noticed that this strange lotus was sucking all the life force out of them. Mr. Meng went out of his way because he understood that they wanted both sides to suffer, thereby benefiting from the conflict. The madman laughed at how many people wanted so badly to take his life. In his opinion, if they were so waiting for his death, then it was necessary to fight not for life, but for death. He decided to use his secret technique. Thanks to her, he should have reached the peak of his power. In fact, he really wanted to see them and made little effort to resist. The man begged everyone to retreat as soon as possible, because they would not be able to completely overcome him. The bad new man quickly raised his hand to do something very bad to the audience. He easily managed to pick up one of the servants and torture him in the air without even touching it. The old man finally realized that the world's highest form of magic had now been used. The subordinate begged the boy to leave him alive. He really didn't want to die. After these words, the bad fellow, without thinking, clenched his hand into a fist with all his might. At that moment, the servant's head exploded into small pieces, killing him completely. The thief went completely crazy. In his opinion, they begged him for forgiveness, but it was too late. The headless subordinate suddenly fell to his knees without any life force left in him. The sorcerer begged them not to engage in battle and ordered all members of the team to quickly run away. At that moment, a strange ball appeared in his hand, which he swung at the thief. He decided to immediately throw this strange thing, and immediately there was a big explosion due to it. Gu Chen and Mister couldn't understand what was happening around the night division. The boys finally managed to break away from the attacks of this bad company. Sao Ai reported that things were not going well and the traitor simply disappeared. This information greatly alarmed and shocked the men. The young gentleman noticed that they had fallen into a trap. The sorcerer's powers were exhausted, and all he wanted to do was hold them back and hide. Pan replied that he was restoring his magic through the force as if his energy was at an end. He ordered half of the people to pursue members of the union and the rest to look for this traitor. Everyone quickly agreed with his words. Gu Chen did not understand what was happening. Parubka was clearly worried about something, namely what was left of Lo Jiao. The boy summoned a small demon to help him find what he was looking for. The tiny devil was glad to meet him. He began to sniff the ground, and after a few seconds he found something. The creature stood in front of the young master and showed him the only true direction. Gu Chen quickly understood what his little subordinate was saying and looked away. A dark and deep night has come. The thief was still in the forest. He cursed because the wound had opened again and it was necessary to quickly find a new shelter. Unexpectedly, a great, powerful and invincible negative force appeared behind him. She completely surrounded the boy, thereby trapping him. The boy was in complete misunderstanding of what had just happened. The old man swung a big, powerful whip at him and started laughing loudly. He finally caught him. This plan had reached a crucial stage, but he couldn't escape in this state. The pagan asked whether the master should own his power. The boy answered him as if he was not his master, but only a puppet and a container for a dead man. Grandfather denied his words because even the saint was ready to take risks. And then, why was she so afraid for herself? In addition, he took away secret knowledge. Was he not afraid to get to Earth after death? According to the young man, there were so many lies that were taken as truth. If the old man would go now. He did not kill himself, but if he continued to interfere with him, he could kill one of the members of the union. The man laughed because the young master still did not want to finish him off. If the young man was really that greedy, he could have taken his head to the elder to receive a reward. He did not expect that he would have to deal with such a heathen. He would have to use magical powers. The madman said as if he was lucky, and at that moment he formed a terrible monstrosity. The sorcerer realized that it was the same very scary and powerful monster, Zhang Yilou. Parubk was sorry that he was seriously injured, and only magical power opened the eyes of this rat. Unfortunately, he had the honor of dying from the clutches of such a frightening and dangerous monster. The old man was very scared. It wasn't good for him, and he asked the young man why he summoned this monster. The hand of the bad new moon almost completely merged with the body of the mystical monster. The terrible creature looked in the direction of the sorcerer, and he ran very quickly out of fear. The monster opened its mouth, which became triangular and had a lot of teeth. Such a picture could frighten anyone. The crazy young man decided not to waste time and immediately, without thinking, attacked the traitor. The old man immediately exploded, his body tore, and the spirit left this life. The heathen smiled widely, as if such an inglorious death suited the old man. Suddenly and quickly, a sharp sword entered the central part of the young man's chest from behind. The young man noted that in a conflict between two parties, the benefit will always go to the third party. The thief did not understand at all how such a turn of events could happen at such a moment, and especially with him. After a few seconds, the young man fell completely on the floor and lay unconscious. Gu Chen didn't expect that this rebel Lo Jiao had such a weapon, and if it wasn't for this old man, he would be dead by now. He noticed that there was definitely an evil energy in this thing, and it was just like a living being. The hero tried with all his might to separate the body of the monster from the body of the bad guy. It was at this moment that the young man saw something interesting and very unusual near the corpse. It was a strange piece of writing wrapped in a scroll. Gu Chen opened the strange scroll of paper and began to read. This creature was drawn in it. It was one of the 7 Tentu magical creatures from the Guishu Sea and Yuhua Mountain. The monster was the demon Jungalo. The boy mentioned the use of blood for bows and arrows, but did not understand how it could be used for his purposes. He decided that after all he saw this priceless creature, he must definitely take it for himself. A voice was heard from afar, and it seems that someone heard something unusual and called everyone after him. Parabok realized that the people of the Night Division were already here. Although they knew nothing about this demon, they had to be careful not to suspect anything. Men have already come to him. Mr. Meng ordered the young man to go and see what was there. Cao Ai listened carefully to his order. The boy was worried and called everyone here because the brother and this rebel were lying unconscious. He asked his newly minted colleague to come to his senses as soon as possible. Gu Chen gradually regained his composure and asked what had happened to the traitor. Cao Ai asked Parubka not to worry, since the scoundrel had long since died. He was greatly amused by this news. The man was burning with curiosity, so he asked the boy how he managed to get rid of the heathen. He admitted that when he got there, the thief had already had a fight with one of Lai Lo Zhao's followers. The young gentleman attacked him just as he was fighting with the old man. He seemed to get it too, and he was able to lose consciousness. A colleague noticed that his brother was really cool at work because he finished off these heathens. One of the military defenders noticed that the bounty on his head was finally in their hands. Immediately after these words, he burst out laughing, but the young man did not quite understand his impressions. He asked the master what to do next. He should have sent the corpse of this traitor to the Haiyang estate, but the way was far. And besides, the Night Division could not take all the responsibility. During his absence, Mr. Men transferred all the duties of the head of the Night Division to him. The boy was not sure, since he was somewhere for the first time, and it would be difficult for him to take on such a job. The man replied that in these 2 days he had seen what that capable young man was capable of, and he suited this role like no other. The boys begged him very strongly not to refuse, and promised to follow him with joy. In such a case, agreeing was a better choice for him than politeness. He thought he had been very pushy lately. It was necessary to be more careful, and it seems that he did not succeed at all. Pan hoped that nothing tragic would happen during his absence. A dark and deep night has come. The man was walking from the ward with a torch through the wild and mysterious forest. He noticed that lately the animals in the mountains had become fewer and fewer. If this continues, he will not be able to collect a dowry. Unexpectedly, the stranger heard strange music. He hoped that it was someone celebrating a wedding in the middle of the evening. The man was very scared after seeing someone standing right in front of him. Opposite him stood the persons guarding the strange structure. The men were completely dressed in red and looked very scary. At this moment, he finally realized that he was surrounded by real, scary and mystical ghosts. The following events will take place in the training camp of the Night Division. The weather outside was warm and sunny. The young man calmly, without distraction, practiced the burning fire technique. With just one powerful swing, the young man was able to cut down a strong and large metal beam. He thought that after the battle, his strength had reached the average level of the 8th rank, and his cultivation speed was already quite high. Cao Ai asked the boy if he had received news from Haiyang. He was also interested to know what was inside. In the letter, it was said that in the last few days, mystical sounds, sometimes funeral, sometimes wedding music, were coming from the general mountain in the Donglen region. After this began to happen, several irrigators who went to this forest after dark disappeared. The young man did not understand at all who could mourn relatives and arrange a wedding at night. Were these demons jokes? This was unknown to them now, so they sent them this message. Gu Chen did not expect that as soon as Mr. Meng left, trouble would immediately happen to them here and there. In his opinion, this time there was a very high probability of meeting a ghost in the mountains. He ordered the boy to call Wang Qi Jiao Xingmin because they were about to retreat. Japan did not understand whether the leading administration of Donglin had fallen so far. The place was not big, they didn't even have their night division, so if something happened, they asked for help from the unions. The man was very happy because the members of the night division team had already arrived at the specified place. It seemed to him that if they had not come, they might have already lost all hope. In front of them stood the owner of this union, Zhang Min-chun. Parabok asked the gentleman not to worry, but to tell in more detail what was happening in the organization. He spoke as if it had started a few days ago. Strange sounds of music similar to a funeral, and sometimes to a wedding, began to be heard from the General's Hill. This melody seemed to be playing in my head so that covering my ears made no sense. People were terribly scared, and everyone wanted to leave these places with their families. The old man begged the boy to help them, and the young man asked him not to disturb him. If they were already here, they should have dealt with everything. Gu Chen ordered Cao Wan to use the power of the unconscious dragon and check if there were any traces of negative energy left here. At this moment, the young man immediately began to use his abilities and carry out the order of the young master. The red fire dragon was circling the cliff too fast, suspiciously and strangely. The unexpected mystical creature began to burn completely from the magical attack of the evil power. Molodik understood. As if the evil energy from the mountain was so powerful that even from such a distance, it was able to poison his jade assistant. Gu Chen asked the master if this was the general's mountain that he was talking about. The old man answered positively. During the time of the last dynasty, the commander-in-chief Lo Jigen lived in this city. He was a participant in wars and achieved great success in this. This natural structure was named in his honor. This was the story of Dunlin's entry. From the book he held in his hands, one could learn even more about the man's life. The guy was focused. The young man was very attentively reading the contents of a large old textbook. He understood that this reference book told in great detail about the hero's life, and even his relationships during life were also there. One of the guardian warriors added that it was as if this dynasty had ruled over half a century ago, and a large number of people wanted to achieve immortality. Did he bury himself alive only to come back to life now? The boy was still not sure. Tonight, they were to investigate the music on the mountain and notify the people immediately if they found anything strange. He asked everyone to be more careful. All members of the organization of the night division immediately agreed to his plan without objection. A dark and deep night has come. Gu Chen kept his eyes on the strange natural structure. He thought it was really strange. He travels for this music and has never heard anything like that at all. There were no clues. It seems that it was worth going to the mountain in search of information. Someone strange and frightening was watching the young gentleman from the corner of a nearby building. Gu Chen quickly noticed the person and immediately ordered the scoundrel to show her face. The unknown creature tried to escape immediately after the young man jumped to the edge of the roof. The stranger continued to run very fast. Molodik managed to notice that his technique of behavior looked quite strange. He continued to run away, but at one point he suddenly stopped, realizing that everything was lost. The stranger was standing in front of the wall, but there was no way back because the young man was behind him. The young gentleman asked him why he stopped and suggested that he continue running. The man turned to face him, holding two large and sharp hooks in his hands. Gu Chen understood that he didn't want to be caught, so he decided to attack him first and apologize for the misunderstanding. He very much wanted the scoundrel to die by his mighty and invincible sword. Then a mighty fight began, during which the antagonist began to shout quite loudly. The boy understood that the thief was powerful enough, but his movements were not human-like. Now the young man could not believe what was happening before his eyes at that moment. The sharp metal hooks flew freely in space by themselves and attacked the air effortlessly. The new moon was very alert and tried to quickly escape from the attack of the evil force. The man was still trying to completely knock the boy off his feet, but he was not giving in to his attack at all. The heathen's eyes glowed too strongly with negative energy in the darkness and attracted his attention very much. Gu Chen did not think for a long time, but immediately decided to use the flaming sword technique of the same name. Parabok struck the enemy with all his strength, but he could not count on what happened next. In front of him now stood not a man at all, but a large, strong, powerful and ugly creature. He looked very frightening, as if hypnotized, and generally looked half dead. In his opinion, it was definitely a zombie. He was still evolved to black, and his body was supposedly made of stone and steel, and his strength was compared to 8 royal warriors. The boy thought as if he still wasn't a monster after all, because they were the ones with too many bones. Immediately after his words, the character started making strange noises and trying to attack the main character. At that moment, he realized his first weakness. It was that the creatures moved too clumsily. The next young man noticed the second moment, which had the effect of weakening the monster. In his opinion, the whole point was that they could not resist the magical power for a long time. Realizing this, Gu Chen decided to immediately use the golden seal technique. At the same second, there was a big and powerful explosion. It was completely unclear what was happening. He also remembered that zombies did not walk alone, and there must be someone nearby who controls them. The guy looked carefully around the area and finally managed to find the bad stranger. The person who had been watching the events for a long time finally realized that this young sir had found her. Gu Chen immediately began to quickly run after the one who so carefully controlled the monster's actions. After a very short period of time, he still managed to catch up with this thief. With a quick movement of his hand, he removed the hat from the other man's head and was surprised by what he saw next. He could not believe that such a young and familiar person was standing right in front of him. The girl complained about him because he hit her. In her opinion, he was an adult and he should not be ashamed to insult a small child. After that, she made a very strange sound. The boy did not like such shouts, so he shouted at the girl and ordered her not to do so again. The young woman claimed that he cannot call himself a man if he beats women. He got angry and asked her the same question again. The old man promised to show her soon whether he is the same in reality. His eyes immediately lit up red. The young person could not understand at all what the young sir planned to do with her next. It was a dark and deep night outside. She apologized because she had made a big mistake and had no intention of repeating it again. Gu Chen assured himself that he should have done this much earlier in this situation. In her opinion, if the zombie had not been injured, she would not have caused such trouble. The young man asked the woman what her name was. The beauty had an unusual name, Liu Ying. He could tell about her family without even using the words of the person present. It was a religious, poor, and evil community that cultivated zombies. The young girl called him a bad word and assured him that she was not a beggar, and his whole family was very unkind. The boy did not like her words, and he did not understand at all how she could say such things to him. Because of this, the young man decided to hit the girl again. After his actions, the beauty immediately cried a lot and asked the gentleman for forgiveness. She was from an ordinary hunting clan who are already Hunan corpses, a follower of the Liu family of the 3 great peaks in the Husi, associated with the branch of the Masters and the Dead. These had a different origin. In his opinion, despite this, the improvement of zombies was a unique secret art, which the organization carefully preserved and classified a number of combining combat traits and achievements of the key ideal. It is generally said that his strong black hand, which was obtained by combining martial arts and ghost-cutting techniques, belonged to the Wu family of this organization. They created a new, unusual method of improving zombies, improved the cultivation system. He thought it must not have been the lowest class. The girl noticed that he had at least a little common sense. The young gentleman ordered the girl to stop bowing before his knees and quickly stand up to him. Liu Ying smiled sweetly and thanked His Majesty for being so kind. Gu Chen decided to ask what the direct descendant of the Hunan clan was doing so far away from his place and why was she watching him. The young woman laughed because his face did not match her standards. She was only looking at the mountain, and not only her face was in this area. There were several cultivators in this place. The old man did not understand what she was saying and asked again. Does she explore the strange melody that emanated from this natural structure? The girl was not interested in mystical music and came here only for the treasures that were hidden there. The young gentleman was surprised by her words. He was interested to know who had told her such information. The lady thought for a moment, after which she began to actively remember where she learned about it. According to her, the whole story started last week. The events took place a few days ago, when it was a dark and deep night. Recently, an astrologer from Yongbei Poki was drunk and accidentally revealed information about secret treasures. It was as if he had been watching the sky that night, and there he saw a purple aura emanating from Jiang Mountain in the Donlin region. In his opinion, there should be hidden riches there. Including her, the other 5 cultivators who heard this speech were present there. Several of them decided to join forces for the search. After agreeing, they came to this county. But she didn't expect the people from the night division to be here as well, and she was so lucky. Gu Chen wondered if the recent events on the mountain could be related to the treasure she spoke of. Things were really getting a lot more complicated. The girl carefully watched the young man and laughed very loudly at him. The young woman suggested that he join forces with her to find wealth. She suggested that he tell him about these cultivators, and they would also be able to keep some of what they found for themselves. The boy asked if this would mean that she had made her difficult journey in vain. She believed that too many people were targeting this case, and her chances of getting it were 0. In fact, she came here for another purpose: to collect corpses. These cultivators were very strong, and if someone accidentally killed them, the remnants would not just disappear. Using family skills, she took it upon herself to turn them into zombies. Melodic thought, the woman was so polite, and now she keeps talking about the dead. If he had committed suicide, she would have done the same to his body. She had already lost, but it surprised him that she had something to offer to seal the deal. Liu Ying reported that there were 5 extremely strong beings on the other side, and 2 of them were close to rank 7. If she joined the organization, then obviously the 2 sides would have much more power. Gu Chen had to agree with him and do as she ordered in order to unite into one team. But if something went wrong with the young lady right away, he planned to kill her right away. The girl begged the young man to believe her, because she always honestly keeps her word. The rascal finally managed to scare the hell out of the beautiful Liu Ying. She said that her big black was injured by him, so Sir had to pay for the materials to restore him. Gu Chen was surprised that a zombie with such a hideous face had such a cute nickname. The girl who played with the zombies was really something. The young woman smiled and asked what further orders the young man had for her. Melodic wanted her to introduce him to the cultivators. The guy really wanted to have a friendly chat with them. The following events will take place in Inin. The weather outside was warm and sunny. Liu Ying informed him that the necessary persons were now staying at this very place. Parabok assured him that these people were not so ordinary. So why would they first ask for support from the headquarters and then deal with them? The young master asked him not to worry because he had no intention of fighting them to the death. In the young woman's opinion, even if they fought to the end, they were just a bunch of friends who conspired among themselves, and people like them would not be able to cause problems to the powerful night division. Gu Chen ordered the young lady to stop verbally insinuating the organization. Liu Ying agreed with him and questioned why he was so rude to her. The subordinate poured the tea and asked why he had not been warned of their arrival. He immediately decided to ask the chef to quickly prepare wine and delicious food. The young man assured him that there was no need to do this because they were here on business and he could already leave. The servant agreed with his order. Important people were sitting at the table. One of them asked if the other could see the giant. It was Du Lanzang. Nicknamed, he was the destroying hand of Yang Bei and is a famous bandit who robbed tombs. The heathen was very interested in why the members of the night division were in this particular place. Wan Shuang, nicknamed the Ghost Prince, assured him that there was no need to worry because they had done nothing of the sort. Liu Ying remembered that the man in black had a ghost inside his body, and during the day he interacted as a creature, and in the middle of the night he helped account for the mystical creatures. Also sitting at that table were He Tianzhu, master of 9 illusions, Shui Huzi, Sea Pirate, King Chen Fu, Cambion. The old man swore at the girl and called her a bad word as if she had become a puppet. "Come on, you cheated, you told everything." The woman asked if he even did. Then he thinks that no one can do anything. The man did not control himself from negative emotions at all and could not answer anything. Gu Chen asked Liu Ying who this stranger was. He was from a small rankless sect that possessed the art of illusion, and his lineage was exterminated by his organization for attacking the imperial court. The man said that the night division was a problem. He thought that they should be dealt with first before searching for the treasures of Mount Jiang. He was only here to hunt for wealth, and he had absolutely no intention of coming into conflict with the Union, no matter who ordered him to do so. The boy thought that his family had been destroyed because their elders were as stupid as the weirdo. It must be, they were just as short, useless words. The grandfather did not understand how the young man could insult his teachers and promised to kill him. After these words, he immediately activated his magic power. The old man decided to use the mystic drive sword technique. Out of anger, he wished him to go somewhere in hell. The magic weapon had already quickly aimed directly at Gu Chen's head, but he was completely calm. The young gentleman was able to completely smash the sharp and powerful weapon with a light swing of his fist. The heathen was in complete confusion as to what had just happened with his attack. The warrior protector remarked that all he could do was do low-level tricks that couldn't be hit. He was not at all surprised that the Night Division had completely destroyed this organization. The old man cursed and after that called everyone present bad and obscene words. The second representative assured the men that they did not want to be enemies of the Night Division and hoped that he would reveal his face to them and not touch him. But he replied that he could not offer them such a thing, but he could do something else. After these words, without thinking, he immediately inserted the sword clearly into the scoundrel's chest. With a sharp movement, the young man decided to cut off the old man's head. The upper part flew towards the young man. Gu Chen asked the interlocutors what was the point of this proposal. The evil man could not understand what all this meant. It was necessary to kill right in front of them, thinking that they were so easily intimidated. The bad man belonged to the Taoist illusory spirit race, and he offended the Night Division, which caused him to die. The heathen assured them that if the boy beat them very hard, he would not achieve anything good. In his opinion, the Dolnan district still had a long way to go to reach this strength, and their division did not have much strength. The young man assured, "By those, it is quite clear that this bunch does not care about them." Because of this, he suggested a fight with them. The girl replied that the little traitor Liu Ying was theirs, but she asked to leave this man to her because she planned to end him herself. The defending warriors were very angry and offended because of what they heard from the enemies. The young lady was surprised to ask if they were going to engage in a large-scale fight now. The heathen asked everyone to shut up because they weren't here to cause trouble. He asked what exactly such a powerful and invincible Night Division wanted from them. Parabok killed the old man in one move, so this man possessed outstanding strength and they should not engage in battle with him. Gu Chen thought that they would need the treasures from the mountain, and the organization wanted to solve the case of the phantom melody. If things were connected, it could lead to a conflict and become a problem. He thought that if they got into an unpleasant situation now, they would probably be in a losing position. With this course of events, both the treasure hunt and the investigation would fail. They just wanted to make money on it, so they offered to unite to explore the mountain. The man was interested in the young man's opinion on this proposal. The guy explained that if the boss had shown such honesty earlier, what happened earlier would not have happened. The servant noticed that cooperating with them was tantamount to asking a tiger for its skin. The chief questioned him because he believed that the Parubki had even less, and if he was able to work with them, he was not at all afraid of the members of the organization. New Moon watched carefully and waited to see what answer Gu Chen could give him. He replied as if the master was saying sensible things, and this time the treasure hunt was fraught with danger, and joining forces should increase the chances of success. The man's name was Lanzan, and he wanted to know how he could address the new mission brother. Molodik introduced himself by his full name and smiled joyfully at his new colleagues. Gu Chen was very impressed with Cao Wanj. Using just a few words, he reassured the man. He really wanted to become like him. The chief then suggested the young man to go in search of riches during the day because it would be much more dangerous at night. The young gentleman immediately agreed with his opinion and decided to do as the giant wished. Evening, the newly minted colleague and girlfriend were approaching the mysterious mountain. All other members of the two unions clearly followed them along a clearly planned route. The guide decided to ask him about the tomb of a historical person who allegedly could hide treasures. He answered as if he had experience and only looked at the mountain from afar to find the location. Unexpectedly, the red-haired young man quickly and sharply jumped over the tall green bushes. The weirdo informed the boss that he had just discovered two strange caves right in front of them. Pan ordered to take them there. The subordinate immediately agreed to carry out his order. They saw in front of them two large entrances, which looked too strange from the outside. Newly appointed colleagues in the case could not understand what was waiting for them next. New Moon noticed that the caves seemed to be exhibiting a heavy yin energy, and he had an ominous premonition. The girl asked the main character which of the listed options they wanted to choose. Someone very strange suddenly started calling to anyone who could hear him to help him. Gu Chen was very wary because he did not know that this had just happened right before his eyes. A strange stranger tried to get out of the cave and crawl to those present on this mountain. Cao Ai turned to the boy because he did not understand what this strange person wanted to do now. The man was very surprised. It seems that he was already familiar with the found cripple. Gu Chen asked the master if he could still actually recognize him in this form. Even a man would not be able to understand who it is, but the amulet could still identify the person. Tormented in life, he was named Lin Chi and was a famous bandit from the Yongbei region, specializing in dragon studies, acupuncture, and feng shui. Huan Fenyu and Yang Sanian were present here besides him. This trio robbed most of the famous burial grounds. In his opinion, such menacing pagans who came to rob the burial place were already defeated. Looks like this cave was a little dangerous. Molodic suggested that perhaps the thief had chosen the wrong path and encountered something terrible. The man suggested everyone not to go down this path. He wondered what the other thought about it. Gu Chen didn't mind him at all, so they only had to take another route. He extended his hand to the boss. Mr. noticed that the new brother was very polite. After that, everyone went forward. The young robber courted the young smart man all the way. Parabok tried not to pay attention to it. He understood that after arriving in Dolnin district, a number of suspicious cases took place. In his opinion, all this was very strange at once. Molodic reported that they were getting closer and asked everyone to be more careful. The members of the night organization unanimously agreed with the order of the temporary leader. It was very dark in the cave, so the participants decided to continue with the fire burning in the torch. Gu Chen noticed that this passage was not created by nature, but as if it had been dug out. In this case, the real grave of the master could be located here. It was difficult for the boy to answer this question now, but such a scenario was possible. Unexpectedly, everyone became alert because they heard very strange sounds coming from unknown directions. At last it dawned on them that it was the same famous melody of the haunted mountain. Parabok remembered that this song sounds at night, and they were not in the cave for long, and perhaps this melody was playing from here. In his opinion, maybe the cave was corrupting the human perception of time. He wondered what time it was now. Liu Ying thought that this natural structure was too strange, so she suggested to go back and make a new plan. The young gentleman was afraid that this decision had already been made too late. He looked confused. A strong and strange wind was blowing outside. Everything around became completely dark. Those present were frightened. The heroes saw an ensemble of ghosts in front of them, who sang the same wedding and funeral songs. The man and the young master watched the mystical creatures from afar. He wanted to tell the man something, but he couldn't. Gu Chen believed that these creatures were capable of combining red and white qi. They were also mentioned in the mystical art of Tao. The red-haired robber didn't care, so he decided to attack the strange creatures alone. The boy stopped him, putting a sword to his throat. They had 2 seeds in them, and if you touch them, it will cause an explosion and they will die together. If he wanted to die, the boy ordered not to involve others in this matter. He asked what he should do now. The possession of ghosts was a small world created by a specific environment combined with concentrated yin energy, and there were only 2 ways to destroy them. Gu Chen explained that their items had very dark qi, and there must have been a small demon at the center of the possessions. They should not have come face to face with him. The young man knew that the only way to get out of the trap was to calculate his every step. It was already a dark and deep night in the courtyard. The mystical creatures came closer and closer to the heroes. The boy and his colleague stood looking at everything that was happening. They tried to understand what to expect next. The main estate appeared right in front of him. It looked big and was completely red in color. Melodic replied as if this structure was not an illusion created by a barrier or something similar. He was real. Li Rugong must have abandoned his main palace and built another one on the mountain himself. Gu Chen wondered why he would go so far and what exactly he wanted to achieve. Unexpectedly, the door of the red mystical building opened wide. It was clear that they were already expected. A mysterious stranger, dressed in all red, stood in front of the unions united in a team. He announced that today was the wedding of their mistress, and unusual guests were invited inside. The young woman asked the young man how the members of the organization should act now. The master ordered to follow the rules of the youth, but he still could not tell what might happen now. The subject informed everyone present in the palace that the long-awaited guests had arrived. The boy looked very carefully at every little nook and cranny of the mysterious estate. Strange mystical creatures have been waiting for members of organizations for a long time. They happily looked at the new victims. The girl noted that this city was very frightening and offered to leave it as soon as possible. The man asked them not to panic because now is a possible time to retreat, where they should be patient a little longer. The monster will continue to remind that today is his lady's wedding and everyone can taste as much as they want, but asked them not to hold back. Immediately after these words, the monster ordered the other servants to serve the food as quickly as possible. All the guests were offered strange dishes, hidden in lambs, which were definitely hiding something. The young people were very confused by this course of events, but they were waiting for the further actions of the strange creatures. The maids looked exactly the same and were already carrying personal dishes for each guest. Sao-ai decided to gently lift the lid off the tray. He was very surprised by the contents of the plate. The vessel contained eyes, insects, bones, and rats. He did not understand at all how such a thing could be eaten. The girl drew attention to how the other guests ate this abomination on both cheeks. The monster and his friend were enjoying the food. He thought it smelled delicious. The subordinate informed the audience with a smile that his beautiful lady was already there. Gu Chen was closely following what was happening within the walls of the Great Red Palace. She prayed for a month until her hair turned white, but the divine beings took pity on her. The Buddha was not merciful to her beauty. Her blood-stained hair will forever remain under the satellite of the earth, and that silken thread will always whisper. The lady asked the man if he would go with her to the very end of the river Styx. Unexpectedly, the young man's amulet activated and reacted very strangely to the bride. It seems that this apparition was very afraid of the red-robed woman, and she must be of the level of sea creatures or hungry creatures. With such a course of events, he had absolutely no chance of victory. The monster laughed and asked why the girl was there and the man was nowhere to be seen. The subordinate replied that today everyone present at this event was blessed. He said that their lady wanted to choose a husband from among the guests present. The chosen one was to become the new owner of this estate. The redhead asked with a smile if this strange woman lacked intimate male attention. The bride was very angry because of the words he spoke. With all her strength, with the help of black magic, she pushed the robber away. He cursed because he was shocked by what had just happened to him. His expression was one of confusion. The lady asked whether he wanted to marry her and whether he would leave her in this life after living with her. The heathen spoke as if he had never been lucky with women in his life. Even if the face of the ghost looked very attractive, he would not refuse her offer. The bride noticed that the man's heart was still beating, which is only a sign of a living being. In her opinion, if he planned to marry her, then how could he still remain human? She was clearly up to something. The redhead was in shock because he didn't understand what the mysterious lady was leading this conversation to. Something very strange began to happen around. The atmosphere in the room was too tense. Gu Chen did not understand what had happened to his new acquaintance at this moment. A dark magical force attacked the scoundrel. He cursed his daughter-in-law very loudly. The girl exhaled heavily and turned to the present guests with a sad face. She threw her new fiancé to the monsters as if it were a fresh treat. The man's body flew straight into the hands of the terrible and strange creatures. The crane looked too scary. The monsters quickly began to eat his corpse, but nowhere considered it a very tasty meal in their lives. Sao-ai was in shock. He asked Gu Chen if it would be okay if he refused the offer. The old man was afraid that if the boy did so, he would die an even worse death than the red-haired heathen. In his opinion, this ghost did not pay attention to the choice of a man. Whether you accept the offer or not, the result will always be the end of life. The young gentleman believed that if there was a desire to survive, they should not conform to the established rules. The lady was already looking for a new victim, and it seemed to her that she felt a unique young man. The boy was immediately alert. He was half human and half ghost with a bad temper, but she liked him. She asked whether such a handsome young man would marry her today. Out of shock, the young man could not answer anything. His face looked confused. Without thinking long, he announced that this warrior behind him was younger and more handsome than his person, and for her, the young master would be a worthy bridegroom. All other members of the organization were at a loss as to why the boy did this. The frightened bride noted that the young man actually seemed very attractive to her. Sao-ai was very surprised at this turn of events. All the boy's emotions were visible on his face. Gu Chen answered her as if the lady was very kind to him in this situation. Unexpectedly, the most strange and incomprehensible things began to happen to the trader. Against his will, his hand went across his face, thus giving him a hard slap. The young man was very angry. He did not understand at all what had just happened to him. The big man and the girl with purple hair looked at each other in silence. The terrible lady aggressively swore at everyone because she did not quite understand what all this meant. The old man explained that it was because she had given the heathen her attention by calling his name, and he had allowed himself to do this to the woman. She replied as if she liked his character. He replied that she was really beautiful. For him, the heroine's beauty could be compared to mermaids, angels from the sky, and a flower under the moonlight. Her smile could conquer the whole country. This beauty was like a captivating dream, an exquisite dragon, like a beautiful autumn chrysanthemum, as exuberant as a spring flower, skillful as the clouds covering a satellite, beautiful as the wind in a snowfall. Sao I didn't understand a word Gu Chen said. Another explained that these phrases are universal, and if he comes to an indecent place, he can spend the night there absolutely free. According to the lady, even if she was so beautiful, his heart had changed. The woman sacrificed everything for him, and he still abandoned her after achieving fame. In her opinion, all men were heartless, white-eyed wolves, and they deserved only death. He realized that the lady in red was indeed Li Rugong's mate. She turned into a ghost because she had a grudge against him. The person asked if he wished to marry her and die together in the afterlife, after recognizing her beauty. The young man answered in the negative because he had no desire to marry her. Sao Ai asked if the boy would offend her by using such harsh words and expressions. She was very angry and decided that the young man was the same heartless man. Molodik said that he did not want to, not because he did not want to, but because he simply did not deserve her. The woman in red asked what exactly he wanted to say with these statements. In his opinion, this ghost should have this name. If they do not dispel her resentment, then the company is not destined to leave this place. Gu Chen assured that not only was he not worthy of her, there was no man in this world who was worthy of the lady. The hero realized that he would have to use his 3-inch tongue from now on. The lady not only perfectly possessed a deep sense of love, she helped a little-known man to become a great general of the army. Such a beautiful woman could not be found either in heaven or on earth. Gu Chen assured that it would not take him hundreds of lives to possess a beauty like her. In his opinion, he did not know the difference between right and wrong and was as unfaithful as a wolf in sheep's clothing. Such a person was to be damned forever. The team members laughed at his words. He knew that the relationship between them couldn't last forever, and she wanted to take revenge on Li Rugong, but she shouldn't do it at all. The boy assured that he should be cursed for the rest of his life, but she should not have done such a thing. It was not worth humiliating yourself for the sake of a thief like him. The lady agreed with him. The young man understood that she finally succumbed to his persuasion, and it was worth pushing her further. Melodic said that the scoundrel did not even change the historical records and marked her as an envious person. Today they met, and he realized that these words were a complete lie. The scary woman in red continued to listen attentively to the young master's speech. Gu Chen promised that after getting out, he would quickly correct this story, restoring her innocence. The person questioned whether her husband could really do this to her. He introduced himself by his name because it meant honest and trustworthy. If any of what was said was not true, then heaven would strike him with lightning 5 times. She agreed with him, then turned to her ex and said that he had been deceiving people for too long. The boy immediately noticed that the aura was not satisfied, and lowering the key, rained around the creature. The lady sounded like she was going to feel sorry for them today and ordered the team to run to change the records and tell the world what a piece of trash he was. Parabok immediately agreed with her. They had better not touch her because otherwise she will kill everyone, even if they hide at the end of the world, and the seals of this estate will not stop her at all. The young master was surprised that the structure and Mount Jung were protected by this method. He was interested in who then destroyed this seal. The servant informed them that the woman had allowed them to leave the estate using the back entrance, as the main entrance was not accessible at night. The man still could not understand what was happening here. Those present asked if they could leave. In the girl's opinion, no matter what, they had better get out of here as soon as possible. The ghost looked very strangely at the young person. Unexpectedly, she decided to attack her with her black magic. The beauty did not understand at all what had just happened. The young girl tried to swallow at least a little fresh air in order to stay alive. The lady assumed that men behaved indecently on the faces of such successful women. It seemed to her that such persons deserved to die. Gu Chen remarked with a smile that the cute girl's flat chest was her salvation. Liu Ying was very angry with him because she did not understand what he was talking about. It was still dark and deep night outside. Near the entrance to the Red Palace lay a lot of human bones. One of the team members remarked that someone had already been here before them, but could not get out. The young gentleman announced that they did not have time to find out and offered to get out of the palace. Finally, all the survivors of this mission managed to return to safe territory. Molodik turned to the boss as if he had recently almost killed the young man, and he could attack him in return. In his opinion, they should have worried about each other because otherwise one died. The others would not survive. The man agreed with him and offered to leave as soon as possible because even if they found the treasure, they would not use it in this life. They informed the young man that many dangerous situations are expected in the future and that he and his brother do not want to continue on this path. Li Rugong noticed something strange. She shouted and pointed the boys at someone who was ahead of the team. Right in front of him lay the corpse of a huge man with yellow hair. A textbook lay next to him. The man was very surprised because even this young man had already managed to visit this place. Gu Chen asked him in surprise who this person was and who he really was. He answered as if it was Huang from the well-known Yongbei Tomb Raider trio. The guy asked if he and the person they met at the entrance were part of the same group. It was like that, as if both entrances to the cave led to the same place. At that moment, the young man was able to notice his personal magazine near the corpse and took the printed material into his hands. Opening the book, he could not believe what he had just read. His face was confused. Li Rugong asked him about what was in the records. Gu Chen replied as if the text was about a Taoist priest. 500 years ago, there was a being who called himself the Thousand Souls Taoist in Zhonghu. It was rumored that he possessed great powers of resurrection. Dying, he separated part of his soul and returned. The man was so powerful that he even once fought with the masters of the Luo, White Lotus, and Maitreya lineages without losing, after which he became the most famous in the world. A large number of feudal lords offered him their hospitality in order to learn the art of immortality. Later, for unknown reasons, the Taoist of the Thousand Souls mysteriously disappeared, and only after a while there were only a few news about him in Zhang. The boy was interested. If you return to life afterwards, can it be considered immortality, or does it go against the perception of recluse? If it could exist that long, the pig could become a war holiday. The man was interested in what exactly was meant in the message, which was in Huang's hand. The other didn't care and spoke as if he would not go even if it cost him his life. He wanted treasures. It was a dark and deep night outside. The members of the United Organizations were in a mystical forest, Gu Chen reported, as if the riches hidden here should not be far away so the team should move on. Cao Ai asked the young man to look ahead. The expression on his face expressed surprise. Directly in front of the boys stood a large, bright, and very strange structure. It looked like an unusual building. The old man suggested that Li Rugong's tomb should be on this very spot. The door was wide open. It looked like someone had been in there before they arrived. Someone suggested that what was already waiting for them ahead could be dangerous, so they should be more careful. Everyone agreed with this opinion. According to the man, something was clearly wrong, and if it was the master's tomb, then why was there information about the Taoist of the Thousand Souls? Gu Chen was surprised when he saw what was going on in the large room in front of them. Young people came to a huge, spacious hall. In the middle of the room was a strange, closed chest, which was covered with a large number of metal chains. The man said that it was the 9th of the covered dragon chains that held the coffin. He was interested in what exactly the deceased wanted, and whether he wanted his successors to be emperors. Parubka was interested in whether such a strange arrangement in feng shui has any specific meaning. He explained to the young man that a bronze coffin in such a position meant that he would definitely be robbed. This location hinted that future bandits would be able to easily break through the defenses. This was a feng shui rule, but hidden defenses could be removed by dragon key. The man said that 9 creatures would lower the coffin, only for the current emperor. He was interested in how an army general could agree on such an invention and what he was trying to achieve. The boy assumed that if this is really the repository of the master's dead body, then the treasures must be inside the grave. Bandits looked at each other and thought about further actions to find wealth. The man believed that if this was the case, it was necessary to stop talking about honor. He wanted their capabilities to determine the owner of the jewels. The young gentleman considered them ungrateful and asked if they wanted to kill everyone present by opening this coffin. After these words, the pagans were very surprised and hostile towards the young man. The boy stood in front of them with a sword. The man noticed that he was really very fast. After these words, he immediately invited the young man to join him on the deadly battlefield. Gu Chen laughed at them. Melodic considered them to be a pair of evil monks who killed a large number of people. Even if he kills them, it will mean the disappearance of the threat to other people. The scoundrel ordered not to use time for chatter and immediately announced a terrible battle. At that moment, he turned into a terrible creature with sharp claws. Melodic remembered how he was very strong in the main residence, and he still felt that unpleasant blow. The girl and the man stood in complete misunderstanding of what was happening between the members of the association. The young master replied that without his strange attack, the scoundrel would have become the meat of demons. The heathen spoke to the boss as if he was taking care of Gu Chen and ordered him to take care of the others. The man replied that first you need to take the treasures and only then start a fight. After these words, the man decided to use the chains to get to what he was looking for so much. The other members of the team were outraged and surprised by what was happening before their eyes. Parabok ordered the foreman to stop because no one should allow him to touch the coffin. Cao Wai immediately agreed to the order of the young master, but was already in combat readiness. Gu Chen asked if he wanted to go further. If the answer was positive, you had to go through it first. The heathen smiled back at him slyly. He was clearly up to something very bad. The monster turned to the young man and replied that if he was in such a hurry to die, he would arrange it right now. It was already dark at that time, and they were deep underground. The energy in this place was very high. His power was at its maximum. The young lord replied as if his power was always at its peak, regardless of territory. A great struggle for life began. The boys took turns skillfully attacking each other. Unexpectedly, after the attack, there was a new moon, and there was a large and powerful explosion. The side of the traitor filled with smoke. Gu Chen was very surprised because the heathen suddenly disappeared from the area without a trace. The boy was left alone among the large number of dragon chains that trapped him. The scoundrel clung directly to these shackles, where he announced his presence with a laugh. Immediately after that, he, without thinking too much, decided to attack the young man with all his might. In his opinion, it was too crowded here to conduct special combat techniques, so it was worth changing the position. The madman smiled and asked if the boy was planning to escape from his company. Unexpectedly, Gu Chen parried the traitor's attack when he activated his dead man's magic hand. He pushed the boy away with all his might and confidently ordered the young traitor to leave. As a result of the impact, the young man's leg flew away from other parts of his body. The monster was in pain. The young man calmly walked towards the crippled person while he still could not come to himself. Liu Ying cried a lot because after what she saw, she considered the young man not a man but a monster. The terrible creature continued to laugh. The guy understood what the heathen could generate, the scoundrel said, as if this is still not the end. He could heal from any wounds inflicted. He understood that his strength was definitely incredible after the transformation, but his muzzle weakness was just as noticeable because he relied entirely on instincts and combat experience, just like an animal. Parabok didn't think for long, so he immediately decided to use the fire seal technique, Gu Chen said, as if the heathen is over. A powerful explosion occurred immediately at the scene. Alas, the magical golden mark could not do anything against the bad boy. The young gentleman explained that it was just a cover for the main force attack. At this moment, the young man decided to use the art of the popular destructive sword. Unexpectedly, the body is completely for two parts. The traitor considered such a course of events impossible, Gu Chen pondered. He noticed that there was only one man left at this place. The man held onto the chains and strode confidently right on top of the great general's coffin. He quickly approached his assistant, after which he looked very sternly at the young man. The heathen replied as if Wang Chuan had already lost, and he had better stop there. The guy promised that he would definitely end up in prison after what he had done. Pan replied that such weak persons as they were nothing compared to his strength. At this moment, he smiled slyly and decided to activate his magic power. The man wished death to his enemies. Parabok decided to repel a sharp attack using the magical bone spike method. Unexpectedly, the strongman grabbed the young bandit's hand, enchanted with great strength. The thief was shocked when the man was able to break his otherworldly upper limb effortlessly. The brave gentleman smiled very slyly, but was already pushing the scoundrel to further actions. At that moment, a powerful, huge, fiery dragon flew right between the enemies. It turned out that it was Cao Wan who decided to intervene in the fight by using his secret technique. The man was not happy that this kid had decided to try to attack him. Liu Ying spoke as if they should go forward, and she would support them from below. The old man realized that he seemed to be the only one actively helping his young master. The young woman replied that it was impossible to do otherwise because her zombie would not be able to jump above these chains, and it was impossible to take the treasures. Gu Chen ordered his brother warrior defenders to withdraw, as he would handle this alone. The boys agreed with his words. Unexpectedly, he activated his magical movement and turned to the master, offering to either surrender or make excellent company with Wang Chuan. The man realized that there were too many of them, and he should grab the riches and run away. Immediately after these words, he jumped out of the coffin, but he was very surprised by the person who was lying in front of him. Yan Song-Nine's body was on the floor. It seems that she was trying to discover a secret technique, but something went wrong. At that moment, he wondered if he would repeat her fate if he opened her by force. The boy asked if he still wanted the treasure despite his presence. The new moon warned the thief that the pagan was standing alone on the verge of death. The scoundrel cursed, because gaining strength and wealth were always associated with danger, but he didn't care about this fact. After such thoughts, the master decided to activate the power again and ordered the coffin to open for him. The burial ground collapsed in front of them, along with the dragon's protective metal chains. Gu Chen noticed that this dangerous and mystical tomb seemed to have an overly hostile aura. The man eagerly wanted to see what was hidden in the middle of the coffin. Opening the lid, he saw the dead body of the powerful general, which looked like a living one. He was surprised that the face was preserved in such an excellent condition. He wondered if the mighty lord had used some technique to keep his corpse like this. Next to him, he saw a scroll and took it, because he considered this object to be the same treasure. Unexpectedly, the eyes of the mighty dead man turned completely dark black. Li Rugong abruptly grabbed the bandit's arm. The man was very frightened by this turn of events. The dead man called him a very bad word because he dared to disturb him. The thief asked for forgiveness and promised to disappear from the scene immediately after the crime. The mighty lord replied that even his death would not satiate the incredible hatred of the deceased. After his speech, he pulled the scoundrel's hand with all his might, tearing it off. The self-confident bandit began to moan loudly and scream from excruciating pain. Gu Chen wondered if this person was actually Li Rugong himself. He did not understand whether the general had been reincarnated. An evil power reigned over the man's body, and his face expressed incredible hatred and anger. The traitor begged the general to leave him alive, but he immediately attacked him so that the bandit's head was completely blown off. The young master ordered the defending soldiers to retreat and immediately flee from the scene of events. The dead man became wary, but still confidently held the scroll in his hands. The corpse of a young person was lying next to some strange, mystical object, and everything around her was shrouded in magic. The man thought about something, but unexpectedly dropped a strange and unusual thing from his hands near the body of a young girl. Cao Ai finally realized that it was an item to use the void teleportation method. The guy asked a colleague how exactly this mysterious technique works. This item had the ability to transport things to other places through space, but it was very difficult to set up. The old man asked if he was also small. It became clear that they were clearly preparing to transfer this package from here. The young master thought about the grave robbers, the strange artifact, and the astrologer from Yongbei Zhongshan. In his opinion, it was all connected, and they fell into a trap. It seemed to him that this great man knew exactly about the composition of the grave, and therefore made the necessary transfer mechanism, but the presence of the night division in this situation was unforeseen. Liu Ying asked the members of the union why everyone was waiting for something and suggested that they flee from this bad place. Unexpectedly, an evil magical force attacked the members of the organization. No one could understand what was happening now. The girl noticed that her body did not obey at all, and she could not perform any movements. Li Rugong replied that it would not be so easy for the entire night division to escape from him. Immediately after these words, the dead general decided to quickly fly up to the young master. He promised to make fun of young people in such a way that the tortured ones would want to die themselves. Gu Chen looked confused and thought that his mission in life had come to a complete end. Unexpectedly, the body of the old dead man was struck by a stream of great powerful magical power. Unexpectedly, someone asked the powerful man what he was producing. The young gentleman and his assistant did not understand at all what was happening in the room. He regarded the Thousand Souls Taoist as his best friend, and he had no thoughts of deception. The secret revival technique turned out to be just a fake, and it was already clear that he wanted to take over his body. Parabok finally understood that there were two souls in the body of the former general. One was the voice of the individual, and the other belonged to the person mentioned in the records. The man reminded that 500 years of planning had gone to waste, because today the seal was broken. Now he had to finish him off, even if he split into thousands of souls. Another asked him to stop, because the physical body had been saturated for a long time, and when he was reborn, he would only have the appearance of a ghost. If he had done so, both would not have been able to return to life. There was a big and powerful explosion. In his opinion, he was born a great general of the country and will die as such. Even as a spirit, he will be able to command his phantom army and the city of the dead. Liu Ying remarked that she could finally move her youthful body freely again. Gu Chen understood that it was impossible to stay here and ordered everyone to leave the room immediately. After the team members left, a large flow of magical energy quickly gathered into one large pile that produced corpses. It could be assumed that the soul and body of a powerful man were able to be reborn again. The members of the night division ran as hard as they could down the corridor, trying to find the right exit. Gu Chen guessed that this must be the way the trio of robbers came. The man ordered them to stand and threatened that he would eat everyone present alive. The young gentleman turned to the protective warriors, the young man and the girl. He ordered them to run along this road because it would be easier to escape if they split up. Cao Ai answered fully, as if I fully understood the young man's words, and asked him to protect himself. The young man promised to meet after everyone went outside. The team members unanimously agreed with him. The boys immediately ran, but the young girl remained next to the boy. She looked very confused. Gu Chen asked if the girl was planning to catch up with the other members of the Great Night Division. The girl remarked that it would be much safer for her to go with him. Besides, there were 3 of them, and the ghost must be following them. The spirit was already flying after the fashion of the lady and ordered her to stop. She has already begun to regret this choice. In his opinion, this power was very seductive. He wanted to eat the new moon right now. Liu Ying suggested that the boy run to the Red Estate. Molodik thought it was madness, the same as that ghost. The girl answered as if they were not going to go there empty-handed. Gu Chen asked if the young person was really confident and definitely wanted to carry out the planned plan. The following events will take place in the Red Palace. The young people have already arrived at the specified place. Liu Ying said that she felt like she was between a huge rock and a hard place. She didn't want to fight anymore. In her opinion, their fates were already decided, so the girl begged to leave her in this place. A strange voice asked the young people why they stopped, because it was very difficult to get here. Behind them stood the great general Li Rugong. The man looked at his estate and memories flooded him. The young man announced that an old friend, whom the pagan had completely forgotten, was resting here. He asked the young man again because he did not quite understand who they were talking about now. Gu Chen spoke about bringing a bad and worthless person named Li Rugong. The woman in red heard the boy's words and reacted very quickly to the 2 important news. Suddenly, huge lightning-like clouds formed by dark magic appeared in the sky. The general asked what they wanted to achieve, being already on the thin edge of death. Someone was calling the majestic man. Mr. Suddenly and unexpectedly became very embarrassed. The lady with black hair was already standing right behind him and was carefully following his every move. Li Rugong was surprised because 500 years had already passed and Shui Er had completely changed. The woman in red got angry and explained that she became this way because of his words and actions. In his opinion, everything that happened in the past is his fault. He asked her to wait while he ate the boy. It seemed to him that the forces were similar, and when the spirit stabilized, they could be together again. The young master spoke as if Li Rugong was already dead, but still saying such bad things. The lady was very angry because she could not live with him in the world of the dead after what the pagan had done. Today, even if her soul crumbles, she will definitely make sure that he will never be reborn again. After these words, the woman attacked him. The man called her crazy because she always didn't care what he planned and wanted. The lady in red laughed, but without thinking, ordered the traitor of her heart to die. A very powerful magical explosion took place in the palace. It was not known who won after all. Gu Chen and Liu Ying watched in confusion at what was happening before their eyes. The red manor instantly began to disintegrate, forming large rubble from its remains. The old man protected himself and the girl, using the dead man's magical hand for defense. According to the young man, if it was too close, the explosion would surely kill him. The guy did not see this couple after all. Both participants in the tragic family fight died. He carefully placed the young lady on the floor, and he himself decided to come closer to the abyss. The old man was surprised because he saw in the depths a magical sword and scroll hanging in the air. The young gentleman quickly landed at this mysterious place. He was very interested in what kind of artifacts were waiting for him. In front of him was the mighty sword of Li Rugong himself. It was definitely not an ordinary weapon. Gu Chen immediately grabbed the weapon in his hands. It was called Bloody Abyss. He remarked that the name was very interesting, so he decided to take it for himself. The boy's magic amulet was immediately activated when he found a new, powerful magical power. It seemed to him that this scroll was similar to the Aluo demonic table obtained from a trader from the Luo clan. It was one of the 72 sacred abilities of Guishu, the great mountain of Haihua. He knew that in order to use the blood contract, one must combine the power with the key of the natural fluid, as if concluding a contract at the cost of life itself. You can use it to the full and change the intensity. It was written that when you killed an enemy and came into contact with its material, you could activate another power, thereby taking it for yourself. It must have been the general's technique, so no wonder it was his salvation. The more the scoundrel's blood is spilled, the stronger the bond. This ability is most powerful in mass combat battles. Gu Chen thought that these 72 sacred possibilities were amazing. These are not martial arts or key techniques, they have their own system. Because of this, the young man decided to take the find. It seemed to him that the scroll carried by void teleportation was the same, and the Thousand Souls Taoist was also the bearer of one of the abilities, but this item was one of them. In his opinion, things were getting more complicated, and with his energy and personality, it was difficult to think about it, so it was better to get out of here to begin with. Liu Ying finally started to come to her senses. The young lady had a very bad headache. The young lady immediately asked the young man what had happened and whether Li Rugong had died. The boy replied, as if this trash was worth his death, he died with his wife and their souls finally disappeared. She was happy with this solution to the problem. The girl remembered that she had come here to collect corpses. Wang Huan was cut in half, Dulanzhong was torn apart, and even she almost died in this cursed place, and in general, this trip was a mistake. Gu Chen replied that there would be many more opportunities to collect the dead later. The lady in red was dead, and her ghostly possession was also dissolved, so he tapped the young woman on the head and told her to leave. The following events will take place with the heroes on the great Yujing mountain. It was already dawn outside. Someone climbed the slopes and did not understand why the device that blocks the flight was placed here. Even if he wanted to use such a method, he still wouldn't be able to. In front of us was Wei Junshan, a strange, moderately chubby astrologer from Yungbei. The man said that it was all because he didn't use qi to train his body. It was one of Zhang's great masters, Mount Yujin, Feng Taisu. The gentleman replied as if he was joined by his abilities, which he cannot lose, otherwise it will affect his fate. The old man asked if the boy had brought the same thing that he had asked him for recently. The astrologer replied that it was necessary for him and assured him that he always does his work well. The new moon spoke. The master predicted everything well for her. All he did was wake up drunk and say a few words that caught the attention of a pile of Jinhu garbage, and they did all the work for him. Grandfather was not really worried about this because he considered young people to be a group of bad instigators. The astrologer questioned whether this thing was really so magical that it could bring the dead back to life. The old man asked again if the young man wanted to see now with his own eyes the secret thing in action. He was very embarrassed and answered that no, he would not even dare to ask for such a thing. In the man's opinion, it was all useless, And if you don't possess the spiritual techniques of so-called revival, it's just an illusion, and that Thousand Souls Taoist was only deceiving General Li Rugong with it. The astrologer practiced one of the 7-10-2 divine powers of Guishu Mountain High Yu Hua, divine spirit conduction. This technique separated the soul from the body, allowing the use of spiritual power as needed. Grandpa remembered that Tao's soul was not complete, so he requested his physical body from them to find a more suitable one. He thought that it was because of this that he planned to deceive the general and waited 500 years to forget to study the shell perfectly. The boy questioned the master if these methods were really that strong, because he had heard that the 72 great saints of Yuhua Mountain were insane. The man replied that only a powerful and great sage could do something impossible. The old man said that in the past there were such a number of people. These were ghost people and demons who gathered right here, deciding to go against the formation of this world. They exchanged and combined their techniques, ultimately creating something incredible. For thousands of years, all these abilities were passed down, and he didn't even know how many generations had passed. And he believed that no one was bothered by the question of whether such a power was created by a madman or a great sage. The astrologer thought that his words sounded very confident. In any case, he recently made a trigram and discovered that it was the girlfriend E-power that was hidden precisely in the soul of the Taoist soul. The master thought that it was his prediction anyway. He found the general's magical power. But it was no longer important, and he also noticed that he was still using artifacts for prediction. The boy asked the old man some very interesting advice because he wanted to become even better. He mentioned that the new moon seems to see people and events that may happen in the future and change someone's fate. In order to get this technique, the man sent 2 people, but both of them disappeared inside, and he accidentally announced the news by bringing the thugs from Jinhu there, which made it possible to get it. The teaching had advanced his dedication by 10 years ahead. He also reported that the people of the division who were present there returned alive. The grandfather replied that he did not participate himself, but led others. The master told him not to worry, because they would not suspect them. Now I had to go. As promised, he had to take on an illusory spirit to become a cultivator. Moladik thanked him. The young people have already found a safe way out of the cave and have finally arrived in freedom. Sauai wondered why his young master had not yet returned from that dangerous place. The warrior protector explained that the ghost of the powerful general was too strong, and he feared that the young man might find himself in a sad situation. The guy believed that he could always turn everything into luck, and even now he is sure that everything is fine with him. He wanted to go back to check, and if he didn't come back, the others would be sent to headquarters. Gu Chen was standing behind him. The young man assured that this should not be done because he was already able to leave. The Parubkas were very happy to see him whole and unharmed. They were interested in what happened to the ghost of Li Rugong. The young man said that the pagan died together with his wife, and this became such an evil revenge. He told the union members that things seemed to have gotten very confusing, so he should go to Haiyang province and report everything to Lordum Mennu and Kui. Young people agreed with his opinion. The girl was angry because they had already known each other for quite a long time, and he just wanted to leave her here. The boy suggested that she go to Luo County to find Master Lai Pan so as not to cause him any trouble. Liu Ying did not agree with him because she thought that she had always behaved well. The young woman begged the members of the important union to wait for her and not to leave her in this place. She turned to the young gentleman saying that the little lady's legs hurt and offered him to carry her on his back. Gu Chen ordered the young person not to touch him. The following events will take place in Haiyang, namely in the Great Night Division building. The old man recalled how he had recently referred the lad to Mr. Man, but he wanted to refuse because now he had changed his mind because the lad had talent. Grandfather ordered to look at how beautifully everything was written here. Unfortunately, he was not powerful enough and otherwise had to join forces with Jinhu's thugs. The man replied as if this person should know what to do and when to compromise. He asked the commander-in-chief to discuss it, because he was afraid that the importance of the mountain was much greater than it seemed. In his opinion, everything was very simple here. Not paying attention to the goals of those behind it, the chief asked if he knew the lords who stood above him. The old man thought that all this was good, but none of their business. While the paperwork is being done, others have stressed themselves out about these events, so why should the division be involved? Mr. Meng quickly bowed before him and replied that he fully understood everything from what was said. Members of the powerful union had already arrived at the parking lot, so they actively greeted the commander-in-chief. The chief thought that the men had done a good job on Jiangjun Mountain, and especially Gu Chen had shown himself well. The conclusion was summarized according to the protocols for demonic incidents, and now he really wanted to pay attention to the price of their achievements. He suggested that the young man receive 200 others, one for each, and asked if everyone agreed with him. The young men had no objections to this topic. The commander-in-chief was satisfied with everything, and he announced that he had important matters to attend to, so unfortunately, he had to leave them. Mr. Meng ordered Cao Wai to find a list of pills that everyone wants to get. When he is completely finished, he has to go back to Luo County. Parabok immediately agreed with him and was already ready to carry out a new order. Gu Chen showed him the sword he took out of the grave, and it must be Li Rugong's weapon, which he had owned for 500 years, so it was all cracked, and he wondered if it was possible to restore it. The man replied that this object of protection was invented a long time ago, because of which the spirit has now disintegrated and the art of production has been lost. It will be greatly restored. Weapons were usually divided into 3 categories. The first is ordinary swords made of simple materials that can be found anywhere. Others were made from unusual, rare minerals known as mystical protection. The third group was occupied by divine weapons. It has a spiritual origin. Even proof of its existence was not so easy to find. Gu Chen believed that, although the item could not be restored, it was still a mystical thing. The trip was definitely worth it. On the table lay the Sword of the Underworld textbook and 2 strange boxes with magical contents. According to the young man, getting a book as a reward is not so bad. Glasses with spiritual essence pills and merit points. He finally entered the middle of the 8th rank. He felt that the cultivation of this method should go smoothly, and it would also go hand in hand with his new protective item. The combination of these 2 techniques is called. Gu Chen wondered if he should attempt a blood poem now that the young master had reached this level. The old man finally realized that it was the same contract. After that, the new moon was surrounded by magical energy. Cao Wai asked those present if they had seen his young master somewhere recently. The boy recalled that after receiving the award, his brother went to another city. Mr. Meng decided to remain silent. Melodic did not understand at all what was happening at this very moment in this place. It could be seen that the Palace of the Night Division was emitting an excessive amount of magical power. Gu Chen tensed up very much because he could feel too clearly how the blood kai would explode now. The young master immediately decided to try new powerful skills. He effortlessly activated the power. He noticed that this floor was covered with granite. It was surprising that such an attack penetrated so deeply. If in battle, someone uses other people's liquid to read a poem, it will tear apart the opponent's body. Unexpectedly, the strong man Pan Meng confidently entered the young person's room, wanting to say something. The man announced that something had happened, so he would have to run somewhere quickly. There were many talented people in the night division, so the old man did not understand. Why promote Gu Chen in particular? In his opinion, Ji Hai's death is no small event. He recalled that while the deceased was alive, they had a contract regarding the supply of spiritual medicines. Now that he is dead, they don't know who will take his place because it's too important a matter. Mr. Man assured the Lord that he was preparing to go to the capital within 2 months, so the center would choose someone, which gave him a great opportunity to transfer to the night division of the capital. The old man replied that he was actually the captain of Heiyang Prefecture, and he even offered to appoint him as the deputy commander-in-chief in a few days. Pan questioned why he wanted to be a low-ranking guard in the Tianyin chain. The man replied that he really appreciated his contribution to training, but after the last fight with the Luo cult guides, he realized that he had a lot of shortcomings, so he needed to train even more. The commander-in-chief ordered him to forget about it. He had already decided everything, and he would not be persuaded. Still, the old man really wanted to hear why he chose Gu Chen in this case. Mr. Men replied, as if he wanted to give him more opportunities to study. Because he is not strong enough to be a night protector, so he suggested it was a good idea to start by gaining experience. He very much wanted to make the talented young person his personal entertainer. Young members of the organization walk through the forest. The guardian warrior asks how the Chang clan, a group that cultivates the herb, can become so famous. In his opinion, they should just sell their plants to the night division, and they should provide them with protection. Sao Ai replied that the boy was not very intelligent because they did not grow herbs, but spiritual medicines. This is not something that ordinary people can do. Gu Chen noticed that, in addition, small clans like this always walk on thin ice. If something were to happen to them, they would not have a chance to excuse themselves. The boys finally arrived. The second defender warrior reported that this was the designated location. The young gentleman was looking at a small but very bright palace, inside which they were already waiting for them. The stranger asked the other who this new fellow was. Standing before them was Qin Lin Feng, the first young master of the Chang clan. He introduced himself by name and explained that he was the acting captain from Luo County and was here to pay his respects to the old man from the night division. Moladik replied that he had heard a lot about him. Another believed that if he had this position temporarily, it did not mean permanent validity. It was the second master of the Chang clan, Qin Liang Teng. Parubka decided to remain silent because they did not know how to properly behave in such a situation. The boy said as if the current captain wasn't enough. Then he could ask them who Mr. G wanted to get a clone from. He immediately proposed to the interlocutors the candidacy of Lord Commander or Governor. The old man begged Gu Chen not to be angry because that scoundrel didn't mean it at all. An elderly person suggested that those present go inside because people from other factions have already arrived and are resting in the guest hall. The rude young man looked very askance at the young man. He clearly disliked him. The members of the night division confidently made their way to the palace. They had already congratulated the boy on his arrival. The grandfather introduced the young man to those present as the acting captain of Luo County and asked to wait until all the invitations arrived. In the future, senior masters were to come to talk with him on all the necessary topics. The stranger replied that he seemed familiar to him. It was Zhou Zhang from the Zhou family in Dunlin. Gu Chen was very happy to see him because he had heard a lot of news and good rumors about him. He remembered that this family was popular and very powerful. About 30% of spiritual medicines were used on their account. The night division cannot compete with such a fate of drugs, but they can only compete for leftovers. The man introduced himself to the others as Chang Chun Guan, a native of East Yulian. The young man, together with other members of the union, greeted extremely important people. The person introduced himself as Dong Kui, an elder of the Qinshan sword cult. Next to him stood the master, Taoist Hai Shi. Also in front of them is another important old man. It was Jun Lin from the Daoshuan cult. Someone replied that this elderly gentleman was as beautiful and perfect as ever. Those who received the guests thanked everyone present for such a long and not very pleasant wait. Gu Chen was very confused and tense because of what he saw, which was completely unexpected. The young gentleman definitely knew this heathen because he had already encountered him before in visions of a magical being. The old man could not believe at all that such a man had brought himself to death. The following events will take place in the Changle clan manor. The weather was warm and sunny outside. An elderly man wondered where he was spending the night in this small village today. The scoundrel was very surprised to see the young gentleman. He thought that he would not meet him in such a place. The old man did not think that he knew him, but he was sure of it. In his opinion, the new moon was unlucky because the monsters of his Taos of the 5 systems are not so easy to find. The guy spoke fully about the great opportunities and abilities of the invited guest. The chief of this estate greeted everyone present and was glad to see them. The old man wanted to be honest, so he said that he had recently come here and therefore did not yet know about spiritual preparations. He hoped they were still being dealt according to the old rules. Displeased, he replied that Cham Chun Guan had recently gone into seclusion. Therefore, he will not participate in the distribution of medicine. First, Elder Ni assured that this time his Daoshuan sect needed 30%. Another rep responded the same. Gu Chen questioned whether the gentleman considered the night division to be an insignificant organization at all. The old man wouldn't mind if the Zhou Nu family asked for 30%, but if the other two only wanted that much, then they would only be left with 10. In his opinion, it was because their factions had been too ambitious over the years, or because they night division had given them too much space. The old man asked what exactly he wanted to tell them. Even if it was, he wouldn't talk to them like that. The second also agreed with Elder Dao Xuan because they had been close for many years. New Moon agreed to the Jinshan sword sect, taking 30%. The young man thought that the other was stupid, but he did not guess that the first was the same and would choose a side so quickly. Now he was beginning to understand something. Gu Chen was sure that he had been there for a day or two. The young man was an intelligent person, so he wouldn't force him to enter into a contract. But the boy had warned that the Night Division might pay a visit to his Daoshuan sect, but he was sure that they didn't want that. He also heard that there was still a merchant army in the Jinshan Sword Alliance. In that case, the elder shouldn't have been more careful because they might not be able to get out of Heiyang in the future. The man became very angry because he did not understand how it was possible to say such a thing to him. The old man did not understand at all what was the difference between such a course of events and a bandit. The old man asked which of them was the first to be embarrassed, so he asked him to be careful with his words. The blue-haired young man offered to live amicably and at the same time earn money. In his opinion, it was not worth conducting everything in this way, so he proposed to solve this issue by fighting. Those present immediately fell silent, not even knowing what to say in such a strange situation. The boy agreed. But today was Master Zai's funeral ceremony, and tomorrow they would fight the two elders. The old man begged the invited guests to go and rest after a hard journey and before important events. The protector warrior questioned whether the young master really wanted to do this so badly. Gu Chen assured the boy that he didn't need to worry so much. He knew exactly what he was doing. Melodic questioned if he had really seen the last messages to his parents about the second master becoming the leader of a powerful clan. The old man reported that one of his men had seen it with his own eyes, and that it could not be a lie at all. In his opinion, he had the support of the Daoshuan sect, and he is also the eldest son, so such a position should have been up to him. But he reminded that he would have to pay 10,000 taels of silver and 5 bottles of Yinling Dan. The boy objected because he had already given everything from the acid to the great master a long time ago. Someone replied that the Taoist master of the 5 senses was indeed a generous person. Gu Chen asked them if the pagans should be called crooked-armed. They were clearly hostile. The old man was very surprised at this turn of events, but did not even have time to say anything. Without thinking, the young master decided to activate the magic technique using the demon's hand. The bad new man was shocked by what was happening right now in front of his eyes. Gu Chen, without any hesitation, decided to attack the heathen immediately. The man looked very confused and scared. Unexpectedly, the scoundrel decided to laugh and call him weak. He was immortal, so he wouldn't be able to kill him. The old man did not understand at all how this Taoist was able to contain 4 ghosts. It seemed that he was no longer human, but a half-ghost. The old man understood. If he cannot kill him, then the amulet must take away all the energy. The old criminal was in complete shock. Magic power was leaving him with every second. After a few seconds, the scoundrel, having no strength, fell without showing any signs of life. The new moon asked the boy not to touch him at least, and to leave the young heir alive. Gu Chen ordered the Grand Duke not to shout, but asked him not to worry because he would not kill him. Despite this, the young man said as if he had too much courage. The heathen got angry because he did not understand how he could afford to kill 4 disciples of the Chang sect. The old man answered, as if this person was not a Taoist, but a famous Taoist evil that the Night Division was looking for. He asked the frightened man what he needed and why he appeared here in the first place. The boy did not understand at all. Did he allow the thief to kill his father and become the leader before the relative left the last words? A man from 7 in the morning suddenly died in the prime of life. It looked strange. Melodic wanted to object, but he could no longer control their sex struggle for dominance and profit, and he wasn't going to. Gu Chen recalled that he had hired evil cultivators to kill people. He explained that the father always chose the second son, but was always kind to him. He would not be able to do such a terrible act because he always loved his relative. The young gentleman asked him not to hurry, but to guard his words for the black prison of the royal knight and to prove his innocence. The boy kept saying that it was very unfair. He asked to help him with this and promised to do everything, and he says that even if it offends the Taoist sect. Parabok was on his side. Gu Chen asked why he did it in the first place, but assured him that if he knew his mistakes, he could change them. Molodik ordered the Grand Duke to get up. The young man immediately helped him up. The young man was very happy that such an important person was able to leave the darkness and go to the side of light. After these words, he immediately laughed. The Grand Duke was surprised at how he could change his mood so quickly and unexpectedly. The old man said that a few days after his father's death, he managed to contact the 5 dirty Taoists. The heathen told him that the elder of them had the last words of his beloved relative. Gu Chen replied as if these scoundrels must know something, and things in this situation were not so simple. He had just taken all the ghosts that had raised the thieves in Nephrite and thought he might find some clues. The hero moved to another dimension where 5 small creatures were already waiting for him. The young gentleman turned to one of them and said that there were more of them, they were all alive, and their color had changed a lot. In his opinion, that little devil who was red was the oldest among the team. The young man asked if they had seen the Taoist monsters that had been accepted into this place very recently. The mystical monsters pointed in unison towards someone who was sitting with his back to them. There sat a boy, the weakest ghost of his temple. This useless piece was not worth the time at all. He turned to him because he told the Grand Duke that the second son of the Zai family had a last message on his hand. Parabok asked how he could have learned about it and whether he could have been involved in it. With just one look, the young man wanted to hypnotize the monsters and find out what he knew. In a fit of rage, the prince asked Gu China if everything was okay with him and if he was feeling normal. The young lord explained that there was something wrong with the last words in the hands of the second prince. His relative was in the prime of life, so he could not leave his last words so early. The boy was very surprised and could not believe it, that a good man tells the truth, but does not lie at all. He believed that if he was next to him tomorrow, he would become the leader of a powerful sect. The young man promised to do everything as the master says. In addition, he instructed him to wash the floor and dispose of the body. The Grand Duke immediately agreed to his order. In his opinion, this was the most horrible way to practice evil and should be cut to pieces and cooked with the dogs. Moladik said goodbye to Master Zai. The young man very much wanted to express his gratitude to the good Lord for the attitude towards him. The following events will take place in the backyard square. The weather was warm and sunny outside. Moladik turned to those present because they had returned, which means that the battle must begin. The old man agreed, because there was to be 1 attack, defense, and 2 games. If he loses in any of them, he removes himself from the competition. Gu Chen was already confident that others might not even worry about it in today's battles. In his opinion, it was not worth decoding with such words, so he should at least be a little ashamed. The grandfather thought that there was too much idle chatter, so he decided to teach this kid a lesson. The young master wanted to start these competitions as soon as possible to finish your stay here. The elder ordered the young man to listen to his advice and be patient. There was a layer in his hands, but he warned that the most interesting things were waiting for him ahead. The old man ordered the bloody marionette to listen to him and immediately get out of the middle. The large magical layer instantly began to transform into something terrible and incomprehensible. Cao Ai asked everyone to pay attention to the fact that this strange thing began to change shape. The metal monument was finally able to transform. The man really appreciated this lad if he released a bloody puppet at the start of the fight. Someone has to lose in agony now. The new moon begged Gu Chen to be more careful, because this product had knives everywhere. The boy immediately decided for himself that such a sight was a worthless staged stage. The grandfather angrily ordered the bloody marionette to instantly make mincemeat of the young person's body. The young man turned to the spirit of the flaming sword. Ghosts and gods were to open his eyes. Unexpectedly, the young man decided to attack the otherworldly creature with all his might. The metal monster could not withstand such a powerful attack, so it disappeared at that very moment, leaving nothing behind. The elder could believe that the bloody puppet no longer existed. He was filled with anger. The young man who was hostile towards the young man became wary. The old man announced that Gu Chen of the Jing Knight Division was the winner. They, the defender, questioned whether it was really all over after just one punch. Cao Ai believed that he had concentrated all his energy into the weapon and it was too powerful for the enemy. The representatives of the Jinshan sword sect asked if they agreed to follow their disciple. The young gentleman replied that it was no longer of any importance to him. He looked very confident. The suspect assured the Lord that he had not seen much and did not know, and perhaps he would not be able to return suddenly. He asked if he was ready to take the risk. The heathen's eyes suddenly turned black, after which he immediately wished him luck. A dark aura reigned around. Dobryak asked what he meant. Another replied that the conversation would be about shadows. In his opinion, he is the strongest Taoist. His every movement was strong and brought death. Dark forces began to attack the new moon. Gu Chen guessed that it was like ghost hands. The heathen answered as if the young man was completely right. It was a method of purifying otherworldly power. The boy asked if he saw how the dark hand of the mystical creature brought the letter to the office. The monster immediately fell silent and could not answer him at all regarding this question. He finally found this dude who was spreading fake last words of the great. The young master thought that the ghost cleansing method was a good solution in such a situation. His body now has ki from the 5 spirits. It was much more than his methods of creating mystical creatures. Unexpectedly, Gu Chen sharply and confidently repelled the attacks of the evil, powerful, magical shadows. Pan was surprised because he did not expect to use ghosting techniques. Another reported that it was not worth fighting at all because they would admit their defeat in this battle. The young man understood that the members of this organization had made a concession to him by their refusal. The boy showed his father's death note. The young man was to become the leader of the clan. Now that the winner has been found, they will vote when the medicine is distributed. All the elders read this letter and understood that it was indeed written by the master. The man said that since everyone was present, the second prince would perform the ceremony and save them from such a journey. Another assured that the sword sect still wanted 30% of the material. Gu Chen was categorically against such a brazen decision on the part of this organization. The old man asked if Gu Chen thought it was a permanent thing for his family. The young man thought it was their family business, so it didn't concern him at all. He remarked that if the second prince was out of place, then they in the night division should be the main ones in solving this issue. The old people didn't understand what this meant at all and considered him a foolish person. The young man laughed because his father idolized him during his life, and that was not enough for him. He asked if they considered the suicide note to be a forgery. Gu Chen replied that he had absolutely all the evidence regarding this incredibly important matter. The old man asked the young man to borrow his jade talisman. He decided to start with a hypothesis. Let's assume that this is a false message from the Blavatsky monk of the 9th degree, who sent her master. This fake Taoist amulet can enhance any aroma 1,000,000 times. If he had actually touched her, the smell would have been there. New Moon asked why the Jinshan sword sect had to do it, harming themselves. Gu Chen replied as if he was jealous of his brother's commanding abilities and had secretly solicited Dark Taoists to kill his father and forged the death note. The boy got angry because he did not understand at all how the young gentleman could suggest such a thing in his direction. The old man completely calmly addressed the second prince with a very important speech. The old man asked if they would admit that they had conspired with the bad leftist monks. The young man fell on his knees before him and begged for forgiveness and salvation. He was very sorry for such a big mistake. The grandfather promised to deal with him, so he ordered to take the prince away and deal with him according to the instructions of the old master, according to the rules of the sect. The young master carefully watched the actions of the subjects in this place. Something was clearly bothering him. Dobryak assured that he was a real hero. He had a request for the young man. Gu Chen promised to listen to him, but first he had to give an account to Hantang. Melodic replied as if it was not a problem for him. After these words, he began to tell his story. His Zhou family is in Heiyang province and the entire Su family. Here was a quiet city of Su generations. None of them practiced Taoism. Usually, all were managers, shop assistants, shop owners, accountants. One day, right in the middle of the street, the soldiers quickly caught and arrested a robber. The head of the Su family, Su Zhenxin, watched what was happening. He impressed him, as he often told him about the merchant's plans. He was killed by accident when he came too close to the dangerous limit. The strangest thing was when instead of blood, mystical black pus flowed from his wounds. After all the bad stuff drained out of his body, all that was left was skin without bones. The strangest thing is that he sent his person to the Su family to ask them about it. But they replied that their family had never had such a person. Gu Chen did not understand at all how this was possible. He was confused by this turn of events. Parabok mentioned the main topics, such as a dried corpse, a lost person. In his opinion, it seemed that this trip to Haiyang would bring a lot of new and interesting things. It was a dark night. Someone in the palace could not believe that they had received 50%. The old man was showing a piece of paper that said Gu Chen had received half of the medicine. He believed that he was right about the new moon. The chief inquired why the young man returned and immediately left if everything went well. Mr. Meng replied, as if the Zhou family had assigned the boy to conduct one very interesting investigation. Grandfather believed that others also recognized the abilities and incredible talents of the young person. The man replied that they had gone to the city of Sujia. This was a big question for them. The commander-in-chief asked what the gentleman was doing. The young man will do nothing but great things, such as he are in fairy tales, playing the main role. Mr. Men very much wanted to hope for such a course of events. He was very confused. The following events will take place in Sujia-gen. It was a dark and deep night outside. The young man was drinking and thinking about the April peach blossoms, which were red. He remembered the incredible beauty in the jade house. After these words, the drunkard immediately went home. The lady sat with her back to him and asked if the lovely man had returned to her. The alcoholic became curious that she was drawing in the middle of the night and asked if Milady was waiting for him. Since the woman was not worried about him, he decided to stay with the beauty for 2 minutes. Suddenly, the man realized that he didn't have a wife. At that moment, he realized that the gentleman was very drunk. The girl addressed him as her husband, but answered as if her face was a little crooked. Unexpectedly, the glass vessel flew to the floor and shattered into small pieces. The drunkard was very scared because he did not expect to see such a thing in front of him. Milady laughed and removed the mask from her face. She had one eye, but she looked very scary. The alcoholic finally understood that in front of him was not a person, but a real ghost. The following events will take place the next day. The members of the night division and the Dobryak watched the body of the dead man. Sao I was sickened by what I saw. The warrior protector noticed that he had only one human skin left. The old man said that he found out that there was no yin energy then, but a real shell, so he wanted to vomit from it. Dobryak replied that, unfortunately, it had been proven. It's not a demon, and there wasn't even a clue here. Guchen asked if there were any people from the night division nearby who happened to be passing through this place. Molodik answered as if Suanza's bodyguard was here. He was specially sent by their unit. The young master ordered him, the head of the Su family, to be brought immediately. Everyone was waiting. In the boy's hand was a large and very strange thing. It belonged to Lord Kui. The young man asked to know if anything had happened to him while he was following the caravan. Parabok immediately agreed to his order. Dobryak asked if the young man had any clues regarding this important issue. Guchen explained that when they arrived, then the clues would appear by themselves. The young man looked too embarrassed, so he could not answer the young master. Sawai inquired from the warrior protector why the young man was so anxious and as if frightened. He explained as if it was a matter of Mr. S.'s reputation. The honor of the entire Zhou family was at stake. Parabok knew that even if it was not a person, but a ghost or a demon, he would definitely catch him. Someone told the master that there really isn't and never has been a person like Su Jensen in the Su family. The patriarch assured that he could not be wrong at all. Even if it was so, the whole family, numbering more than 1,000 people, could not be mistaken. Gu Chen asked if the old man was really a resident of Sujia-gen province. The man replied as if he had never found anything unusual in this place and did not remember this person at all. It was a young man named Yan Sinze. Dobryak answered as if he had re-watched the whole story several times, but he really could not find such a name. The old man noticed that there were no children from the last generation in the family, and only one couple was recorded. Gu Chen asked if the old man could show him the way to this family's house. After some time, the elderly man was able to lead the lord to their building. He wanted to ask people to leave. The old man introduced the young men from Jing Division to the wanted elderly couple. The no longer young man and woman bowed before the mighty milord himself without thinking. Gu Chen asked if they had any children. The man explained that when he was young, he went to the north, where he almost froze to death. Now he had no chance to have a child. The lady cried, because if they have a son, it will be a heavenly blessing for the family. The old man replied, as if this couple was responsible for the words that had just been spoken. Unexpectedly, the boy noticed a very strange door and hurried to open it to see what was inside. The old man tried to stop him, saying it was just a warehouse, but it was too late. Gu Chen noticed that they really loved their children, but he didn't understand why they couldn't remember anything at the time. Sao Ai drew the attention of those present to the fact that he had blush and a bookmark in his hands. According to the boy, he had not only a son, but also a daughter-in-law. The elderly man stood in complete confusion and tried to deny everything that had just happened. Molodik ordered the immediate arrest of these pagans. The servants were already going to carry out his order. The old man assured my lord as if they knew nothing of it. He asked the master to believe them. Gu Chen stopped the young man because their words were logical, and now it was important to find out where Su's wife had disappeared. The guy replied that if it was a person from another country, it would be a problem because they couldn't be included in the family tree. The young man ordered to find a free place and bring all the women of the family over 15 and under 40. The elderly man agreed and promised to hold a meeting in the sanctuary. Dobryak asked why the young man was looking for a person of that age because his mother was the same age. He thought that he couldn't marry his mother, but he had already begun to doubt it. The warrior guard smiled and asked if he might have a fetish for more mature ladies. Gu Chen replied as if they were dealing with an important matter, so they should fully concentrate. The stranger stood with a bowl in his hands and said strange things about the incomprehensible layers on its surface. His name was Su Zhendun. He was an orphan since childhood, but he could not think straight. The guy replied that everything was fine and offered to go to the building. 10 beautiful women who came from this family were already waiting for them inside the yard. The warrior protector assured that the young man could openly smell women's scents because there was such a possibility. Since he didn't try women, he suggested that the master treat him to a spring flower. The man noticed that this building belonged to the Lofan gang. He was very interested in whether he was actually able to take the money from his brother. Gu Chen said that if they wanted to have an intimate life for free, then they should work hard and not do obscure things. Molodik replied that they were very sorry for the sisters and decided to activate his secret technique. The ladies were shocked by what was happening. They did not understand at all why these people were sniffing women. It was too terrible for the beauties. Sao cried out sharply as if he had finally discovered the very secret person they wanted to find. In his opinion, the smell of the blushes found and those found on her completely coincided. Unexpectedly, the man got angry because she was his wife, but he did not understand at all by what miracle she suddenly became someone else's daughter-in-law. The guy noticed that Mr. really had a strange fetish for the young lady. Gu Chen was very angry because of this question. The girl said that the sir was wrong because every self-respecting woman could not leave her blush in someone else's building. Saoi was sure of his words because he could not mix anything up. The young gentleman asked if she had an evil aura. Molodik replied that no, but she smelled of the same cosmetics. The old man assured that a living person cannot always hide behind human skin. The lady did not understand how this could be possible. If you have watched this far, I am very grateful to you. I hope you enjoyed this video because I put a lot of effort into creating it. I would be very grateful if you like this video and subscribe to the channel.